Bradford Hutchinson's palm exploded across Jasmine's face, hard enough to snap her head sideways and silence 60 people mid-conversation. Blood burst from her lip. The champagne glass stayed perfectly steady in her hand. Muscle memory from 3 combat deployments she wasn't supposed to mention. "That's what happens when diversity hires forget their place," Hutchinson announced to the yacht full of executives. "Some people need to learn respect." Jasmine touched her burning cheek with the precision of someone who'd killed men for less and looked him dead in the eye. "You just assaulted a federal officer, Mr. Hutchinson. I really hope that's the worst mistake you make tonight." 20 phones recorded everything. None of them knew the logistics coordinator they just watched get slapped was actually Lieutenant Commander Jasmine Williams, Navy SEAL. And she'd been hunting Hutchinson's weapons trafficking network for 8 months. The slap wasn't a setback. It was exactly the evidence she needed. Subscribe now and comment your city below. You won't believe what happens when a racist executive learns he just hit the wrong woman. This story goes places you won't see coming. 20 phones captured the moment. 20 different angles of Bradford Hutchinson, Vice President of Operations at Titan Maritime Solutions, striking a black woman across the face while his executive circle watched and did absolutely nothing to stop it. Some looked uncomfortable. Most looked away. A few actually smiled like they were watching entertainment instead of assault. Jasmine Cooper stood perfectly still in her modest navy dress, the one she'd chosen specifically because it screamed support staff, the kind of outfit that made executives look right through you. She'd learned that trick in Kandahar, when blending in meant staying alive. Learned it again in Mogadishu, when being invisible was the only tactical advantage that mattered. Hutchinson laughed, the sound cutting through the silence like broken glass. His crew laughed with him, because that's what people do when they're scared of becoming the next target. Marcus Webb, the CFO, raised his phone higher, definitely recording, probably already mentally calculating how to spin this for damage control. Kyle Anderson, head of security, shifted his weight and touched his belt where Jasmine knew he kept his Glock. The move was subtle, but she caught it. 8 months of watching him had taught her all his tells. "Somebody get this woman a napkin," Hutchinson announced. "She's bleeding on my deck, and I just have this yacht detailed yesterday." More laughter rippled through the crowd, nervous and ugly. The kind that happens when people know something's wrong, but don't have the courage to say it. Jasmine set down her champagne with deliberate care, took the cocktail napkin someone nervously shoved at her, and pressed it to her lip. White fabric bloomed red immediately. Her cheek throbbed with each heartbeat, hot and swelling. She kept her eyes locked on Hutchinson the entire time, watched his pupils dilate slightly, watched the vein in his temple pulse faster than it should. He was scared. Good. "Mr. Hutchinson," she said quietly, her voice carrying despite its softness. "I was simply noting that the Manila shipping route you mentioned shows 72-hour averages in our third quarter reports, not the 48 hours you stated to your investors. I process those manifests every single week. I thought the discrepancy might concern your stakeholders." Hutchinson's face went from flushed to dark red. "What you think doesn't concern anyone here, Miss Cooper. You're a logistics coordinator. You coordinate. You don't correct your superiors in front of clients who've invested millions in this company." "I apologize if I spoke out of turn, sir." "If?" Hutchinson stepped closer, bourbon heavy on his breath, rage burning in his bloodshot eyes. "You don't apologize with if. That's not an apology. That's corporate speak for, I think I was right to embarrass you at your own event." Jasmine said nothing. Let the silence do the work. Let him fill it with his own fury. Every tactical instructor she'd ever had taught the same lesson. Silence makes people nervous, and nervous people make mistakes. Around them, the circle of executives shifted. Thomas Sterling, the regional director with silver hair and a Rolex that cost more than most people's cars, pulled out his phone, and started recording too. Good. The more cameras, the better. Every angle of documentation mattered. You know what your real problem is? Hutchinson's voice climbed loud enough that conversations on the yacht's lower deck stopped. You're one of these people who thinks being in the room means you get to have opinions. You think because HR pushed through some diversity quota that you can lecture executives who built this company from nothing? Jasmine felt her jaw tighten, but kept her expression neutral. Sir, I was clarifying operational data from our own reports. You were running your mouth. Hutchinson jabbed a finger toward her face, close enough that she could have broken it in 3 places without thinking. I've been in maritime logistics for 20 years. 20 years building routes, establishing relationships, making this company profitable. You've been here what, 8 months? And you think you know better than me? 8 months. 8 months of watching him traffic weapons to terrorist organizations. 8 months of documenting every illegal shipment while pretending to be incompetent enough that nobody looked twice at her. 8 months of thinking about her baby sister Alicia every single day. Alicia, 23 years old when the IED tore through her convoy in Iraq. 23, with a smile that could light up any room, with plans to become a teacher when her deployment ended, with a future that got erased because men like Hutchinson valued profit over human lives. The data I referenced comes from official company reports, Jasmine said carefully, pushing down the grief that never really went away. If there's an error in those reports, I'm happy to review the documentation with you privately. Wrong thing to say. She knew it instantly from the predatory smile that spread across Webb's face, from the way Anderson's hand drifted closer to his weapon. Privately, Hutchinson repeated, loading the word with implication. So now you want private meetings with executives. What exactly are you trying to accomplish here, Miss Cooper? The accusation hung in the air, deliberate and disgusting. Several people gasped. A woman in a red dress actually put her hand over her mouth in shock. Jasmine kept her voice level, even though rage was building in her chest. I'm trying to ensure accurate information is presented to your stakeholders. Nothing more, nothing less. Nothing more, Hutchinson mocked. Listen to this, everyone. Support staff giving lessons to the VP of Operations about accuracy. He turned to his audience, playing to them now like an actor who'd found his spotlight. This is what happens when companies lower standards to meet quotas. You get people who don't understand hierarchy, who don't know their role, who think they can challenge their betters. Their betters. The words landed like a second slap. Jasmine looked around the circle, meeting eyes. Some people looked away immediately. Thomas Sterling cleared his throat, but didn't speak up. Marcus Webb kept recording, with that calculating expression that said he was already planning how to use this footage. Nobody said a word. That hurt worse than the slap. The collective silence. The decision that staying quiet was safer than doing what was right. I understand, sir, Jasmine said. Do you? Hutchinson moved into her personal space, close enough that she could count the broken blood vessels in his nose, smell the expensive bourbon he'd been drinking all night. Do you really understand? Because from where I'm standing, you just humiliated me in front of major investors. You questioned my credibility. You made me look incompetent at my own charity event. That wasn't my intention. Your intentions don't matter. Results matter. And the result is you created a problem that needs immediate addressing. Anderson stepped forward, one hand visible on his belt. Jasmine had watched him for 8 months, knew that when he touched his belt like that, things were about to escalate fast. She'd seen him do it before confronting employees who asked too many questions, before meetings that ended with people being escorted out by security, before situations turned physical. Sir, Anderson said carefully, maybe we should handle this in the security office, away from guests. Smart. Get her isolated, away from witnesses and cameras, away from anyone who might object to whatever they planned next. But Hutchinson shook his head. "No, I think Miss Cooper needs to understand something right here, right now, in front of everyone who witnessed her insubordination." He looked directly at Jasmine. "You don't belong in this world. You don't have the background, the education, or frankly the intelligence to operate at this level. You're here because of political correctness, not merit." The words were designed to cut deep. They would have, maybe, if Jasmine hadn't spent 3 tours in combat zones, watching men underestimate her right up until the moment she outperformed them. If she hadn't earned her Navy SEAL trident through training that broke most candidates. If she hadn't graduated top of her class in every school she'd ever attended. If she hadn't lost Alicia to weapons trafficked by networks this man helped operate. "I graduated top of my class at the Naval Academy," Jasmine said softly, each word precise. "I have advanced degrees in supply chain management, international logistics, and strategic operations. I've worked in maritime shipping across 4 continents for 6 years. My qualifications are thoroughly documented in my personnel file, sir." The silence that followed was different, heavier. Several executives shifted uncomfortably because she'd just exposed Hutchinson's assumptions as exactly what they were: racist, sexist, and completely unfounded. Hutchinson's jaw clenched so hard, Jasmine could hear his teeth grinding. "Your personnel file," he said slowly, "is about to show a very different story. Let's talk about the complaints about your attitude, the written warnings about insubordination, the performance reviews showing consistent inability to follow chain of command." Jasmine's pulse kicked up, not from fear, from recognition. He was building a paper trail right now, in real time, fabricating documentation to justify whatever he planned to do next. "I've never received written warnings," she said carefully. "You will." Hutchinson's smile was the ugliest thing Jasmine had seen on the human face, and she'd seen enemy combatants. "Effective Monday morning, you'll find 6 months of performance documentation in your file, all properly dated, all properly signed by supervisors, all showing a pattern of problematic behavior that culminated in tonight's inappropriate outburst." Webb stepped forward, pulling out a tablet with the practiced ease of someone who'd done this before. "Already drafted, Brad. HR receives it Monday at 0800. I've got signatures from 3 department heads confirming her performance issues." Jasmine looked at the tablet screen, saw her own name on fabricated disciplinary reports, saw signatures she knew were forged, saw dates that proved they'd been planning this for weeks, saw a manufactured narrative designed to destroy any credibility she had. "This is fraud," she said quietly. "This is documentation," Hutchinson corrected. "Properly filed through official company systems, all completely legal." He leaned closer. "So here's what happens next, Miss Cooper. You leave this event quietly right now. You don't make a scene. You don't contact media. You don't file complaints with anyone. Monday morning, you meet with HR, accept your termination with a generous severance package, and sign an NDA that ensures you never speak about this company or tonight's events. Ever." "And if I refuse?" Hutchinson's smile widened. "Then we proceed with criminal charges. See, security footage shows you accessed restricted shipping manifests without proper authorization. We have server logs, timestamps, keystroke records, everything we need to prove corporate espionage and theft of proprietary information. You'll spend the next decade fighting federal charges while your name gets dragged through every news outlet in South Carolina." The trap was perfect. He'd planned this for weeks, maybe months. The slap wasn't spontaneous rage, it was theater. Public humiliation designed to discredit her before she could expose what she'd discovered about his weapons trafficking operation. Before she could prove that his shipping routes were moving RPGs and assault rifles to terrorist organizations. Before she could get justice for Alicia. "I need time to consider my options," Jasmine said. Hutchinson pulled out his phone, set a timer. You have 5 minutes. After that, Anderson escorts you off this yacht, and we file criminal charges first thing Monday morning. The circle of executives watched with varying degrees of satisfaction and discomfort. Thomas Sterling finally spoke, his voice hesitant. Brad, maybe we should let legal review this before we... Legal already reviewed it, Webb interrupted smoothly. Everything's airtight. Miss Cooper either accepts quiet termination or faces prosecution. Those are her only options. Jasmine looked at her champagne glass on the table, at the blood on the napkin pressed to her swelling lip, at the 20 phones still recording everything. She thought about Captain Rebecca Morrison, her handler at Naval Intelligence, who'd warned her that Hutchinson had connections to senators, judges, prosecutors, that bringing him down would require perfect evidence and perfect timing. She thought about the weapons shipment scheduled to arrive at Terminal 9 in 6 days, the largest cache in the trafficking network's history. The proof they needed to bring down not just Hutchinson, but 63 co-conspirators across 5 countries. She thought about Alicia's laugh, about the last phone call before the IED, about how her sister had said, "Love you, Jazz. Stay safe." Like she somehow knew it was the last time they'd speak. And Jasmine made her decision. "I'll take the severance," she said quietly. Hutchinson's expression shifted to pure triumph. "Smart girl," finally showing some sense. "I want $400,000, tax-free settlement, positive reference letter stating I left voluntarily to pursue other opportunities. And my personnel file shows voluntary resignation with 0 performance issues." Webb actually laughed out loud. "You want what? After embarrassing our VP, you think you deserve $600,000, Jasmine interrupted, her voice still calm as glass. "Since you're negotiating against me. Plus the reference letter, plus the clean personnel file, plus a written apology from Mr. Hutchinson, acknowledging tonight's events were inappropriate." The silence was absolute. Hutchinson stared at her like she'd grown a second head. "You're in no position to negotiate." "I'm in exactly the position to negotiate." Jasmine met his eyes. "You need me gone quietly before I talk to media, before I file EEOC complaints, before I hire civil rights attorneys who would absolutely love a case with video evidence of a white executive slapping a black woman while calling her a diversity hire." "How much is your reputation worth, Mr. Hutchinson? How much is it worth to keep this off the Monday news cycle?" Around the circle, executives shifted uncomfortably. This wasn't going according to Hutchinson's script. Several people exchanged glances. Thomas Sterling looked almost impressed. Hutchinson's vein pulsed harder. $400,000, that's final. You sign the NDA tonight before leaving this yacht. $500,000. I review the NDA with my attorney before signing. You have until Monday at 0900 to have the offer ready. You don't have an attorney. I'll have one by morning. And if your offer isn't on the table when I call, I'm holding a press conference at noon. I've already got the video from 7 different phones. Jasmine picked up her champagne glass, took a deliberate sip despite the blood on her lip. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm leaving your event voluntarily, since you've made it abundantly clear my presence isn't welcome." She turned and walked toward the yacht's exit, head high, shoulders back, every step measured and controlled. Anderson moved to intercept, but Hutchinson held up one hand. "Let her go," he said quietly, but Jasmine heard the barely controlled fury underneath. "We'll handle this Monday. She's not going anywhere." Jasmine made it to the gangplank before her hands started shaking. Made it to the parking lot before her knees went weak. Made it to her car before she pulled out the secure phone Naval Intelligence had issued and typed a message to Captain Morrison with trembling fingers. Primary target took the bait. Assault documented. Multiple witnesses. Video evidence circulating. He offered settlement to silence me. Moving to Phase 2. The response came 30 seconds later. Phase 2 was intelligence gathering, not getting physically assaulted. You okay? Jasmine touched her swollen cheek, felt the heat radiating from where Hutchinson's palm had connected. Looked at herself in the rearview mirror and saw the bruise already darkening. Saw the split lip. Saw a face that would be headline material by morning. Perfect. I'm fine. Bruise builds credibility. He thinks he won. That's exactly where we need him. Long pause. Then, still don't like you taking hits for this operation. Part of the job, Jasmine typed back. Besides, Alicia took worse. This is nothing. She regretted typing it immediately, but it was true. Her sister had taken shrapnel, burns, injuries that made a slap look like nothing. Had died in pain, while Jasmine was safe stateside, finishing her degree. Had died because weapons traffickers like Hutchinson cared more about profit margins than human lives. Chen. Morrison's text came through. You there? Here. Just thinking about my sister. This is about more than Alicia now. This is about stopping the network. It's always been about Alicia, Jasmine thought, but didn't type. Every day of this 8-month operation, every humiliation she'd endured, every fake smile she'd given Hutchinson while documenting his crimes, all of it was for Alicia. For the 6,847 other people killed by weapons this network had trafficked. For making sure their deaths meant something. Heading to file police report now, she typed instead. Good. Document everything. And Chen? You did good tonight. Jasmine pocketed the phone and started driving toward Charleston Harbor District Police Station. Halfway there, her personal phone buzzed. Unknown number. She pulled into a gas station, hands still shaking slightly from adrenaline, and opened the message. Video file. 23 seconds. She watched herself get slapped, watched her calm response, watched the circle of executives recording instead of intervening, watched the whole ugly scene play out in high definition from 7 different angles, professionally edited together. The caption made her stomach turn. Support staff learning boundaries tonight. Some people need to understand their place. Hashtag know your role. Hashtag corporate hierarchy. 47 shares in 12 minutes. By morning, hundreds of people would see Bradford Hutchinson slap a black woman and face 0 immediate consequences. Would see her humiliation spread across social media like wildfire. Jasmine watched the video 3 more times, studying Hutchinson's face in the moment before he struck. Anger, yes, but underneath was something else. Desperation. Fear disguised as rage. The expression of a man protecting something far more valuable than his ego. She saved the video to 3 different secure locations and kept driving. Charleston Harbor District Police Station smelled like burned coffee, institutional cleaning solution, and the particular frustration of public servants dealing with the city's worst nights on inadequate budgets. The desk sergeant looked up from paperwork when Jasmine approached, his expression shifting from bored to alert when he saw her face. Ma'am, you okay? You need medical attention first? I need to file an assault report. He pulled out a form, clicked his pen automatically. Name of victim? Jasmine Cooper. She used her cover name by reflex, then stopped. Actually, I need to speak with someone privately. There are federal law enforcement complications regarding my identity that require specific handling protocols. The sergeant's eyes narrowed, taking in the expensive dress that didn't match the bruised face, the military straight posture despite obvious pain, the careful word choices that screamed specialized training. What kind of complications? Jasmine lowered her voice. The assault is real. The video evidence is real. But there are active federal investigation aspects to my situation that require this report to be filed through specific channels with particular documentation protocols. The sergeant studied her for a long moment. 20 years on the job had taught him to recognize when someone was more than they appeared. He picked up his desk phone. "Detective Morales, need you up front. Bring the private interview room key and pull up federal liaison protocols." 5 minutes later, Jasmine sat across from Detective Rosa Morales, a woman in her mid-40s with sharp eyes that had seen too much and a wedding ring she kept twisting when she was thinking hard. Morales listened without interrupting as Jasmine explained the situation. The authorized version, anyway. "So, you're undercover naval intelligence," Morales said, when Jasmine finished, her tone neutral, but her eyes calculating. "Investigating Titan Maritime for weapons trafficking. And tonight, the VP slapped you at a charity event in front of 60 witnesses, including investors and company executives." "Correct. And you want to file a civilian assault report, even though it could potentially compromise your federal operation?" "It won't compromise anything," Jasmine leaned forward. "It'll strengthen it. Bradford Hutchinson thinks he's untouchable. He thinks slapping a low-level coordinator carries no consequences because he has money, lawyers, and political connections that reach into the State House. Filing this report creates an official paper trail, proving pattern and intent. You're building a case from multiple angles. I'm building several cases that run concurrent. The trafficking charges are federal, but the assault, the workplace harassment, the systematic intimidation of employees, those are state-level charges. It boxes him in, limits his legal options, makes plea deals less attractive." Morales pulled out a fresh form. "You've thought this through carefully." "It's what I do, Detective." They spent 40 minutes documenting everything. The slap, the exact words Hutchinson used, the 60 witnesses, the video evidence already circulating on social media. Morales asked good questions, the kind that would hold up under cross-examination, the kind that proved she'd testified in cases against powerful defendants before and knew exactly how their lawyers operated. "This Hutchinson," Morales said as Jasmine signed the final page, "he do this kind of thing regularly?" "According to my research, he's got a documented pattern going back 15 years. 27 employees forced out after reporting various forms of harassment or assault. Every single case settled with NDAs and severance packages structured to prevent legal action. No criminal charges ever filed against him. Until tonight." Until tonight. Morales handed her a copy of the report. Case number 2024-HD-8847, stamped at the top in official ink. "You need protective services? Safe house placement?" Jasmine almost smiled, despite her swollen lip. "No, Detective. I'm capable of handling myself." "You Navy SEALs." Morales shook her head, something like respect in her expression. "I worked with a SEAL team on a joint task force in 2019. Craziest bunch of calm people I ever met. Building could be burning down, and you'd still ask about proper documentation before evacuating. Documentation matters more than people think." "Yeah, I'm definitely learning that tonight." Morales stood, extended her hand. "Good luck with your operation, Lieutenant Commander. And for what it's worth, I hope you nail this bastard to the wall so hard he never sees daylight again." They shook hands, Jasmine's grip firm but not aggressive. Another calibration, another performance in an 8-month show that was finally approaching its finale. Outside the station, Jasmine checked her secure phone. Captain Morrison had sent 3 increasingly urgent texts. "Call me now. Chen. Call me immediately. That's an order, Lieutenant Commander." Jasmine found a quiet spot 2 blocks away, checked for surveillance, and dialed. Morrison answered before the first ring finished.
"What the hell were you thinking?"
"Getting Hutchinson on record for assault with multiple witness corroboration and video documentation." "You got yourself hurt." Strategically hurt, Captain. There's a significant difference.
Chen, I'm ordering you to pull back from this operation. It's escalating beyond acceptable risk parameters.
With respect, ma'am, we're 8 months into comprehensive pattern analysis linking Titan Maritime to weapons shipments in 4 countries. Hutchinson is the operational center of the entire network. If we pull back now, we lose everything we've built, and 63 co-conspirators walk free. If we keep going, we might lose you. That's not an acceptable trade. Jasmine touched her cheek again, felt the swelling spreading. One slap isn't going to stop me, Captain. My sister took shrapnel and kept fighting. I can handle this. Long silence on the line. Then Morrison sighed. I hate when you do this.
Do what?
Act like consequences don't apply to you because you've already factored them into your tactical planning. Isn't that effective intelligence work? It's effective intelligence work that's going to give me a heart attack before I'm 50. Another pause. Longer this time. Fine. But Chen, if Hutchinson escalates beyond verbal threats, he already did. That's exactly why the police report matters. Commander. Morrison's voice shifted to the tone she used when giving final orders. I've got this. Trust me. I trust you. I don't trust Hutchinson or his network. You shouldn't. Neither should his lawyers, because in approximately 3 hours, they're going to realize he assaulted a federal officer during an active federal investigation. Morrison's tone shifted to something almost amused. You're not planning to reveal your cover yet. Not yet, but my civilian assault report triggers mandatory reviews through multiple channels. Those reviews will eventually surface federal interest. By the time Hutchinson's legal team understands what they're actually dealing with, we'll have enough documentation to bury them under charges that carry consecutive life sentences. You're playing chess while everyone else plays checkers. Something like that, ma'am. All right, but Chen, next time someone tries to slap you, dodge.
Noted, Captain.
Jasmine ended the call and started walking back to her car. Her phone buzzed again before she made it half a block. Personal number. Unknown sender again. Another video file. This one was security footage. Timestamp showing tonight, approximately 20 minutes before Hutchinson slapped her. The angle showed an executive corridor on the yacht's second level, empty and quiet for nearly 3 minutes. Then a figure in a server's uniform walked past, carrying a tablet that definitely wasn't standard catering equipment. Jasmine's heart rate kicked up hard. Not from fear, from instant recognition. The figure paused outside what she knew was Hutchinson's private office, glanced both ways with tactical awareness that screamed military training, swiped a keycard that shouldn't have worked on that door. It required executive-level credentials. Disappeared inside for exactly 7 minutes, emerged empty-handed, and walked away with the practiced casualness of someone who absolutely belonged there. Jasmine knew that walk, knew that build, knew that particular brand of tactical awareness that came from years of training. The server looked exactly like her. Except that was impossible. At that exact timestamp, Jasmine had been in the main ballroom talking to David Park, a warehouse supervisor who'd become an unexpected ally. She'd been nowhere near that corridor. She watched the footage 3 more times, studying every frame. The server's face was never fully visible, but the body language, the movement patterns, the way they carried themselves, it all screamed the same training Jasmine had received. Someone had been impersonating her. Someone with access to Titan Maritime security systems, executive keycards, and enough inside knowledge to know exactly when Hutchinson's office would be empty. Someone was running a parallel operation, and they just handed Jasmine evidence that could either save her case or destroy it completely, depending on who that someone was and what they'd actually been doing in Hutchinson's office. Her phone buzzed one more time. Text message from the same unknown number. Check your car. Driver's seat. Blue envelope. Time to learn who your real allies are. Jasmine looked at her car, parked under a streetlight 2 blocks away. Looked at the empty Charleston street. Looked at her phone, showing a message from someone who knew exactly where she was, exactly what car she drove, exactly where she'd be at this exact moment. Someone who'd been watching her far more closely than she'd realized. She walked to the car slowly, hand near her weapon, eyes scanning for threats. The blue envelope sat exactly where the text promised, resting on her driver's seat like it had every right to be there. Inside were photos, high-resolution images showing the woman in the server uniform from multiple angles, showing a face that looked exactly like Jasmine's, down to the specific scar on her left eyebrow from a training accident in BUD/S. And underneath the photos, a handwritten note on paper that cost more than most people's weekly salary. Lieutenant Commander Chen, we've been protecting you for 8 months while you built your case against Hutchinson. Now it's time to finish what we started together. The weapons shipment arrives Terminal 9 in 6 days. Be ready. And stop taking unnecessary hits to prove points. Your sister would want you alive to see justice served. The note wasn't signed, but whoever wrote it knew about Alicia, knew about the weapons shipment, knew Jasmine's real rank and identity, knew everything. Jasmine sat in her car holding the note, feeling her carefully controlled operation crack open to reveal layers she'd never seen coming, and realized that for 8 months she'd thought she was hunting Bradford Hutchinson. She'd been wrong. Someone had been hunting him too, using Jasmine as cover for an operation so deep that even naval intelligence didn't know it existed. And that someone had just made contact. Jasmine didn't sleep that night. Couldn't. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw that handwritten note. Your sister would want you alive to see justice served. The words burned into her brain because whoever wrote them knew things they shouldn't. Knew about Alicia. Knew about the Terminal 9 shipment. Knew Jasmine's real rank and mission parameters that even most of naval intelligence didn't have clearance to access. She sat at her kitchen table until sunrise, studying the photos from the blue envelope. The woman in the server uniform looked exactly like her. Same height, same build, same scar above her left eyebrow from that training accident in BUD/S when she'd taken an elbow to the face during close-quarters combat drills. The impersonator had replicated details that required access to classified military medical records. Her secure phone buzzed at 0600. Captain Morrison. Tell me you're not planning to go to work today. Jasmine poured coffee with hands that had finally stopped shaking. Hutchinson expects me to hide. If I don't show, I look guilty. You filed a police report against the VP of Operations. Walking into that building is tactically stupid. Walking in shows I'm not afraid. Shows I believe my assault complaint is legitimate. Makes me look like an actual victim instead of a federal plant. Morrison was quiet for 3 beats. You're going in wired, audio and video, non-negotiable. Already planned on it. And you take backup. Agent Chen from FBI will be in the parking garage. Unmarked car, 3 spaces from your usual spot. Jasmine wrapped both hands around her coffee mug, felt the heat seep into her palms. Hutchinson's going to retaliate hard today. That's what I'm counting on. Every threat, every intimidation tactic. It all goes on record. Chen, if he puts hands on you again, then I defend myself, and we have assault number 2 documented. Either way, we win. That's not winning. That's you collecting injuries for evidence. Alicia collected shrapnel for her country. I can handle some corporate bully. The words came out harder than Jasmine intended. Morrison sighed, the sound carrying years of managing operators who valued mission success over personal safety. Check-in every 30 minutes. Miss one check-in, and I'm sending extraction, whether it compromises cover or not. Jasmine ended the call and stared at the photos again. At her own face on someone else's body. at evidence that someone had been running interference for 8 months without her knowledge. Protection she'd never asked for, from an ally she couldn't identify. Her personal phone buzzed. Text from David Park. "Don't come in today. Hutchinson's on a warpath. He's been here since 0500 with lawyers." Jasmine typed back. "I'll be there at 800. Need to talk to you privately. Important." The response came fast. "Maya, this is serious. He's not just angry, he's scared. Scared people are dangerous." Exactly, Jasmine thought. Scared people make mistakes. She dressed in the same modest coordinator outfit she'd worn 100 times, checked her concealed recording devices twice, and drove to Titan Maritime through Monday morning traffic that moved like congealed grease. The parking garage felt different today. Heavier. She spotted Agent Chen's unmarked sedan immediately, caught his subtle nod through the tinted window. The elevator ride to the 3rd floor lasted forever and no time at all. When the doors opened, the open office layout had gone quiet in that specific way that meant everyone knew something bad was about to happen, and nobody wanted to be associated with the target. Jasmine walked to her desk like it was any other Monday, logged into her computer, pulled up the shipping manifest she'd been reviewing Friday before everything exploded. David Park appeared at her cubicle within 2 minutes, his face pale and stressed. "What are you doing here?" "Working. I'm still employed until HR tells me otherwise." "Maya." He lowered his voice, glanced around. "Hutchinson's lawyers have been in his office since dawn. They're building something. Multiple people from legal, 2 investigators from some private security firm, even Thomas Sterling showed up looking nervous." Jasmine kept her eyes on her screen. "Let them build. I filed a legitimate assault complaint with video evidence." "That's not how this works, and you know it. They're going to bury you in paperwork and legal threats until you either quit or accept their settlement." "Then they're going to be disappointed." David pulled up a chair, sat close enough that other employees couldn't hear. "I need to tell you something. Hutchinson's people contacted me Saturday, offered me a promotion to senior logistics manager if I testify that you've been erratic, insubordinate, that Friday night you deliberately provoked him because you wanted to create a lawsuit." Jasmine finally looked at him. "What did you tell them?" "That I'd think about it." David's hands twisted together. "I've got student loans, Maya. My mom's in hospice care. Her insurance doesn't cover half the medications. I can't afford to lose this job, and Hutchinson made it clear that if I don't cooperate, I'm next on the termination list." "So you're going to lie for them?" "I'm going to survive. I'm sorry, but I can't be noble when nobility means my mom doesn't get her pain medication." Jasmine felt something crack in her chest, not from betrayal, but from understanding. She'd asked informants in Kandahar to risk their lives for intelligence. Some had. Some hadn't. She'd never judged the ones who chose survival over heroism, because staying alive mattered more than her mission objectives. "If they subpoena you," Jasmine said quietly, "tell the truth as you witnessed it. I won't ask more than that." David blinked. "You're giving me permission to testify against you?" "I'm giving you permission to tell the truth and protect your family. There's a difference." "They're going to twist whatever I say. Make it sound like you're unstable, like you planned this whole thing." "Let them try. Truth has a way of surviving spin if you stick to facts." Jasmine turned back to her screen. "How's the promotion they offered? Good salary bump?" $20,000 a year, plus better benefits." "Take it. Get your mom the care she needs. And David?" She met his eyes. "When this is over and you're looking back, you'll know you told the truth. That matters more than people think." He stood slowly, looking like he wanted to say something else, but couldn't find the words. Instead, he walked away, shoulders hunched like he was carrying weight he couldn't put down. Jasmine checked the time. 08:20. Morrison would expect to check in at 08:30. She pulled out her phone to text when Hutchinson's assistant appeared at her desk. "Mr. Hutchinson needs to see you immediately. I'm in the middle of processing shipping manifests." "Now, Miss Cooper." Every eye in the office tracked Jasmine as she walked toward the executive corridor. Some looked sympathetic. Most looked relieved it wasn't them being summoned. She touched the recording device hidden in her collar, felt its subtle vibration confirming active status, and knocked on Hutchinson's door. "Come in and close it." Hutchinson sat behind his massive desk with 3 other people. Marcus Webb, looking smug, Kyle Anderson standing near the window with arms crossed, and a woman in her 50s wearing a suit that cost more than Jasmine's monthly salary, carrying a leather briefcase that screamed expensive legal representation. "Miss Cooper, this is Regina Castellano, head of our legal department," Hutchinson said. His face was calm, but his hands betrayed him, fingers tapping that nervous rhythm against his desk. "We're here to discuss Friday night's incident and your future with this company." Jasmine sat without being invited. "I filed a police report for assault." "That's not an incident, Mr. Hutchinson. That's a crime." Castellano opened her briefcase with practiced efficiency. "Miss Cooper, we've reviewed the video evidence from Friday's event extensively. What we see is a heated professional disagreement that unfortunately escalated when you became verbally aggressive." "I became verbally aggressive?" "I corrected factual information about shipping routes." "You publicly challenged an executive at a charity function in front of major investors," Webb interjected. "You created a hostile situation that required disciplinary response." Jasmine looked at each of them in turn. Disciplinary response. Is that legal terminology for slapping an employee across the face? Castellano's expression didn't change. "Mr. Hutchinson deeply regrets that physical contact occurred. However, given your aggressive posture and confrontational tone, his response could be characterized as defensive rather than aggressive. I was holding a champagne glass and speaking quietly. The video shows that clearly." The video shows what appears to be a mutual confrontation between 2 adults who let professional disagreement become personal. Castellano slid a document across the desk. "We're prepared to offer you a revised settlement, $300,000, positive employment reference, and agreement that Friday's events were a regrettable misunderstanding on both sides." Jasmine didn't touch the document. "Both sides. You acknowledge that your behavior contributed to the escalation?" Mr. Hutchinson acknowledges that physical contact was inappropriate. Both parties agree to move forward without further legal action. "And if I don't agree?" Hutchinson leaned forward. "Then we proceed with termination for cause based on 6 months of documented performance issues, insubordination, and unauthorized access to confidential company information. You leave with nothing, and we pursue criminal charges for corporate espionage." Jasmine pulled out her phone, ignored Castellano's sharp objection, and pulled up the video from Friday night. She turned the screen so they could all see it. "This video has been viewed 800,000 times since Saturday morning," Jasmine said. "It shows a white executive slapping a black woman while making comments about diversity hires and knowing her place. Major media outlets have already contacted me for interviews. The NAACP Legal Defense Fund offered representation this morning. And you think threatening me with fabricated performance reviews is going to make this disappear?" The room went very quiet. Webb's smug expression cracked slightly. Anderson shifted his weight. Only Castellano maintained perfect composure. "Those media outlets," Castellano said carefully, "will also hear about your history of workplace conflict, your unauthorized access to restricted files, and the concerning pattern of behavior that multiple supervisors have documented." "What supervisors? I've received 0 negative feedback in 8 months." Webb pulled out his tablet. "We have written statements from your direct supervisor, Janet Chen, from warehouse manager, Robert Torres, and from shipping coordinator, Michelle Adams, all documenting problematic behavior dating back to your second month of employment. Jasmine's pulse kicked up, but she kept her voice level. Janet Chen retired 4 months ago. Robert Torres transferred to the Seattle office in July. Michelle Adams quit in September. Convenient that all three are no longer here to verify these alleged statements. They submitted documentation before leaving, Webb said. All properly filed and signed. All fabricated and backdated, you mean? Hutchinson's hand slapped the desk hard enough to make everyone jump. Enough! You've got 2 choices, Cooper. Take the settlement and walk away, or get destroyed in court while we press charges that'll follow you for the rest of your career. Jasmine stood slowly. I need 24 hours to consult with my attorney. You don't have an attorney. I will by this afternoon. And Mr. Hutchinson? She met his eyes. You should ask your lawyers about the legal implications of threatening someone who's filed a police report. It's called witness intimidation. It's a felony. She walked out before anyone could respond, made it to the elevator before her hands started shaking again. The doors closed, and she sagged against the wall, pulled out her phone to text Morrison. They're escalating. Fabricated performance reviews, threatening criminal charges, trying to force settlement. Need legal support, ASAP. Morrison's response came instantly. Already coordinated. Attorney named Sarah Vance will contact you within the hour. She's cleared for your real identity. Trust her. Jasmine made it to her car in the parking garage, saw Agent Chen watching from his sedan. She gave him a subtle nod, then sat in her driver's seat, trying to control the adrenaline shaking through her system. Her phone rang. Unknown number. This is Jasmine. Lieutenant Commander Williams. The voice was female, older, carrying authority that came from decades of command. My name is Colonel Patricia Hayes. I believe you found my note last night. Jasmine's blood went cold. Who are you? Someone who's been running interference for your operation for 8 months. Someone who knows that in 6 days, the largest weapons shipment in Hutchinson's network arrives at Terminal 9. And someone who needs you to stop taking unnecessary hits to prove points. How do you know about Terminal 9? Because I'm the one who arranged for that shipment to happen. I've been feeding Hutchinson intelligence through his Eastern European contacts for 6 months, building him up to this one massive transaction. When he takes possession of those weapons, we don't just get him. We get 63 co-conspirators across 5 countries. Jasmine's mind raced. You're running a parallel operation. I'm running the operation, Lieutenant Commander. You've been providing excellent cover while I positioned all the pieces. The slap Friday night was unfortunate, but tactically useful. It accelerated Hutchinson's panic response, made him sloppy. You used me as bait without my knowledge or consent. I used you as a highly skilled operator who volunteered for a mission to stop weapons trafficking. The fact that you didn't know every aspect of the operation doesn't change your mission objectives. Hayes paused. Your sister Alicia died from an IED built with weapons that came through a network connected to Hutchinson. I lost my son to a similar network 8 years ago. This isn't just about stopping one man, Lieutenant Commander. This is about dismantling an infrastructure that's killed thousands. Then why not coordinate with naval intelligence? Because naval intelligence reports to people who report to people. And somewhere in that chain is a leak feeding Hutchinson advance warning about federal interest. Someone who would have burned your operation the moment they learned about it. Jasmine felt the pieces clicking into place. The mole. You know who it is. Former Deputy Director Marcus Chen, currently under investigation, but not yet arrested. If word gets out that we're onto him, he disappears along with evidence of his involvement. So we keep this tight, keep this quiet, until Terminal 9 when everything comes down simultaneously. What do you need from me? Stay in position. Let Hutchinson think he's winning. Take the termination meeting tomorrow. Make them think you're defeated. Meanwhile, I'll feed you intelligence about the shipment. When it arrives Friday night, Naval Intelligence and FBI move in with perfect coordination. Hutchinson gets arrested on site with the weapons. The mole gets exposed. And 63 traffickers in 5 countries go down in synchronized raids. And my cover? Blown the moment arrests happen. But by then, it won't matter. You'll have succeeded. Hayes's voice softened slightly. I know this is difficult. I know you didn't sign up for someone else controlling aspects of your mission. But I've been doing this work for 30 years, Lieutenant Commander. I've learned that sometimes the only way to catch the big fish is to let them think they're hunting you. Jasmine's phone buzzed with an incoming text. She glanced at the screen. David Park. Hutchinson just fired 3 people who were friendly with you. He's clearing house. Be careful. I have to go, Jasmine said into the phone. One more thing, Hayes paused. The settlement offer? Take it. Sign the NDA. Let them think you're neutralized. It'll make them confident enough to proceed with the Terminal 9 shipment without changing security protocols. I'm not signing away my right to speak about assault. You're signing a document that becomes void the moment federal arrests happen. The NDA can't enforce silence about federal crimes. Any lawyer will tell you that. Take the settlement, pocket the money, and let Hutchinson think he bought your silence. Hayes's tone shifted. Your sister would want you to finish this mission, not die on the hill of public vindication. The line went dead. Jasmine sat in her car feeling like the ground had shifted underneath her feet. For 8 months, she'd thought she was running this operation. Turned out, she'd been a piece on someone else's chessboard, moved around by a woman who'd been planning this takedown for years. Her phone rang again. Different number. She answered.
Lieutenant Commander Williams, this is Sarah Vance. Captain Morrison asked me to provide legal counsel.
Are you related to Colonel Patricia Hayes? Slight pause.
Patricia Hayes is my mother. She said you'd be sharp enough to make that connection.
Another pause.
Everything my mother told you is accurate. The parallel operation exists. The mole exists. The Terminal 9 shipment is real. And she's been protecting you from threats you never saw coming.
What threats?
3 assassination attempts in the last 6 months. Hutchinson's people wanted you dead after you started asking questions about shipping weight discrepancies. My mother's team intervened each time. Made it look like accidents, equipment failures, last-minute schedule changes. You're alive because she kept you that way. Jasmine's hands tightened on the steering wheel.
I never saw any threats.
That was the point.
You stayed focused on intelligence gathering while she handled security. Division of labor. Vance's voice turned professional. Now, let's discuss your legal strategy. Hutchinson's team will push hard for settlement tomorrow. I'm advising you to take it. Your mother said the same thing. Because it's tactically sound. You get $300,000, they get a false sense of security, and in 6 days, when arrests happen, the NDA becomes worthless. You can talk to any media outlet you want about the assault because it's connected to federal crimes. And if something goes wrong at Terminal 9? If Hutchinson suspects federal presence and calls off the shipment? Then we lose the biggest trafficking bust in a decade, and 63 killers stay free. But that's not going to happen, Lieutenant Commander, because you're going to sell the performance of your life. You're going to walk into that termination meeting defeated, sign their papers, and make them believe they've won. Jasmine thought about Alicia. About 23 years old, with teacher dreams and a future that got erased by weapons traffickers. About 6,847 other people killed by this network's products. About justice that required patience instead of pride. Tell me exactly what you need me to do. Vance spent 20 minutes laying out the legal strategy. How to phrase her resignation. What to sign and what to question. How to look defeated without seeming suspicious. When she finished, Jasmine felt like she'd been briefed for a combat mission, which she supposed she had. "One question," Jasmine said. "How did your mother know about Alicia?" "She knows everything about every operator in her network. She knew about your sister before you volunteered for this mission. Knew you'd be motivated enough to stay deep cover for however long it took." Vance hesitated. "My mother doesn't do comfort or compassion well, but she understands loss. Her son, my brother, was killed by weapons from this same network. She's been hunting these people for 8 years. You're not the first operator she's recruited. You're just the first one who got close enough to Hutchinson to make him panic." "What happened to the other operators?" "2 are working different trafficking networks in Europe. One retired after completing her mission, and one died during a raid that went wrong in 2021. Vance's voice went flat. "My mother takes losses hard. She won't risk you unless absolutely necessary. Trust that." Jasmine ended the call and sat in her car watching Titan Maritime employees come and go from the building. Watched David Park walk to his car looking defeated. Watched Anderson patrol the parking garage like he was searching for threats. Watched the machinery of a corrupt company continue operating while she sat invisible in their midst. Her secure phone buzzed. Morrison. "Status update?" Jasmine typed carefully, aware that even encrypted communications could potentially be monitored. "Legal counsel assigned. Meeting with Hutchinson tomorrow. Taking their settlement offer per tactical recommendation." Long pause. Then, "Confirm you understand the mission parameters have expanded beyond original scope?" Jasmine smiled grimly. Morrison knew. Of course she knew. Naval intelligence had probably been coordinating with Hayes the entire time, keeping Jasmine compartmentalized for operational security. "Confirmed. Terminal 9 is the primary objective. Everything else is set up." "Good. Stay safe, Chen. Your sister would want you coming home." Jasmine pocketed both phones and drove to her apartment, took the long route, checking for tails, parked 3 blocks away, and walked back, scanning for surveillance. Inside, she stripped off the recording equipment and listened to the audio from Hutchinson's office. They'd threatened her, fabricated evidence, offered bribes, all documented now. All evidence that would support federal charges when the time came. But what hit hardest was David Park's confession, his choice between truth and survival. The fact that she'd told him to take the promotion because she understood that nobility was a luxury not everyone could afford. Alicia would have made the same choice. Would have told David to save his mother, protect his family, survive. Alicia had always been practical about heroism, always said that staying alive mattered more than being right. Jasmine pulled out the photo she kept on her mantle. Alicia, in her army uniform, smiled bright enough to light the world, eyes full of futures that never came. 23 years old, forever. 6 more days, Jasmine said to the photo. 6 days, and we get them all. Hutchinson, his network, the people who built the bomb that killed you. 6 days, and your death means something. The photo didn't answer, but Jasmine felt something shift in her chest. Not peace exactly, but purpose. The kind that came from knowing exactly what needed to be done and having the skills to do it. Her personal phone buzzed. Text from unknown number. A photo this time. Jasmine opened it and felt her blood freeze. The photo showed Hutchinson meeting with 2 men in expensive suits outside a restaurant she recognized as being downtown. The timestamp said, "This morning, 0700. Before he'd even arrived at the office. The caption underneath read, "Eastern buyers getting nervous about loose ends. You're a loose end. Be ready." Jasmine deleted the photo, pulled her Sig Sauer from the lockbox, checked the magazine, and settled in to wait for whatever came next. Because Hayes was right about one thing. Scared people were dangerous. And Bradford Hutchinson was running out of time before his entire world collapsed. The question was whether he'd try to take Jasmine down with him. She didn't sleep again. Couldn't stop thinking about those two men in the photo. About Eastern buyers getting nervous about loose ends. About being someone's loose end. Jasmine sat at her kitchen table with her Sig Sauer within reach and every light in the apartment off, watching shadows move outside her window and cataloging which ones were threats. At 0300, her secure phone buzzed. Morrison. Agent Chen reports 2 vehicles circling your block. Possible surveillance or pre-attack reconnaissance. Recommend immediate extraction. Jasmine typed back with one hand while keeping the other on her weapon. Negative. If I run now, Hutchinson knows I'm more than I appear. Need to maintain cover for 4 more days. The response came fast. Your life isn't worth 4 days. Alicia's was. So are the 6,847 others this network killed. Staying put. She set the phone down and moved to the window, staying back in the shadows where she couldn't be seen from the street. 2 sedans, both dark, both with tinted windows that violated South Carolina regulations. They circled once more, then parked 3 blocks away with clear sightlines to her building entrance. Watching. Waiting. Jasmine checked her watch. 03:15. Settlement meeting was scheduled for 0900, 6 hours away. She needed to look defeated, exhausted, ready to cave under pressure. Staying awake all night fighting off assassination attempts would actually help sell that performance. Her personal phone rang. Unknown number. She let it go to voicemail. Listened to the message with volume low. Miss Cooper, this is Thomas Sterling from Titan Maritime. I need to speak with you urgently about tomorrow's meeting. Please call me back regardless of the hour. This is important for your safety. Jasmine deleted the voicemail, but the number stayed in her recent calls. Sterling, the regional director who'd watched Hutchinson slap her and done nothing. Now suddenly concerned about her safety. She didn't call back. At 0500, one of the sedans drove away. The other stayed, engine running, exhaust visible in the pre-dawn cold. Professional surveillance. They were checking if she'd panic and run. When she didn't, they'd know she was either very stupid or very well trained. Jasmine took a cold shower to shock herself awake, dressed in the same modest coordinator outfit that now felt like a costume, and made coffee strong enough to fuel tactical operations. Her reflection in the bathroom mirror showed exactly what she needed to show. Exhausted, bruised, defeated. Perfect. At 0730, her secure phone buzzed. Sarah Vance. Settlement meeting in 90 minutes. Remember the script. You're tired, scared, ready to take the money and disappear. Hutchinson needs to believe you're neutralized. Jasmine typed back. Understood. How do I know Hayes's people will actually protect me if this goes wrong? Because my mother doesn't lose operators. She lost my brother. She won't lose you. The certainty in those words should have been comforting. Instead, it reminded Jasmine that Hayes had lost someone, which meant protection wasn't guaranteed, just prioritized. She drove to Titan Maritime through rush-hour traffic, checking her mirrors constantly. The second sedan followed 3 cars back, professional enough to maintain distance, but obvious enough that Jasmine knew they wanted her to see them. Intimidation tactic. Make her nervous before the meeting. It was working, but not the way they thought. Jasmine's nervousness came from knowing that if Hutchinson's people tried something in the parking garage, she'd have to defend herself without blowing cover. Have to use just enough force to survive, but not enough to reveal SEAL training. She parked in her usual spot. The sedan parked 5 spaces away. Nobody got out. Jasmine grabbed her bag, checked that her recording devices were active, and walked toward the elevator. Footsteps behind her. Heavy. Male. Moving fast. She spun,
hand already moving toward the weapon she wasn't supposed to have. Kyle Anderson stood 3 feet away, hands visible and empty. "Easy, Cooper. Just here to escort you to the meeting." "I know where Hutchinson's office is." "Company policy. Termination meetings require security presence." Anderson's expression was unreadable. "For your protection." "Right, my protection." They rode the elevator in silence. Anderson stood too close, using his size to intimidate. Jasmine kept her breathing steady, her posture neutral. Everything about her body language screaming civilian coordinator instead of operator who could drop him in 4 seconds if necessary. The elevator doors opened. Anderson gestured toward the executive corridor. "After you." Hutchinson's office looked different today. The massive desk had been joined by a conference table where 4 people sat: Hutchinson, Webb, Castellano, and a man Jasmine didn't recognize. Mid-50s, military bearing despite the expensive suit, eyes that assessed her with professional calculation. "Miss Cooper, please sit." Castellano gestured to a chair positioned so everyone could see her clearly. Interrogation set up. "This is Richard Morrison, our head of corporate security." Not related to Captain Morrison, Jasmine's brain noted automatically, but the name similarity felt like the universe making a joke. "We're here to finalize your departure from Titan Maritime," Castellano continued. "We've prepared a comprehensive settlement package that we believe addresses all concerns." She slid a document across the table. 37 pages. Jasmine skimmed the first few, saw the key terms immediately. $300,000. Non-disclosure agreement covering all aspects of employment, including Friday's incident. Mutual non-disparagement clause. Agreement not to pursue legal action or speak to media. Acknowledgement that termination was voluntary. "This is different from yesterday's offer," Jasmine said. "Yesterday, you said I could characterize Friday as mutual misunderstanding. This says I can't speak about it at all." "Revised terms," Webb said. "Take it or leave it." Jasmine looked at each of them. Hutchinson was sweating, despite the air conditioning. Webb looked confident, but his left eye twitched slightly. Castellano maintained perfect professional composure. Richard Morrison watched her with the patience of someone who'd spent decades reading people for lies. "I need my attorney to review this." "Your attorney is welcome to review after you sign," Castellano said. "The offer expires at 1000 hours. That's 43 minutes from now." "That's not enough time to... It's enough time to decide if $300,000 is worth walking away." Hutchinson leaned forward. "Or if you'd rather spend the next year fighting criminal charges, while your name gets destroyed in media, and you can't find work anywhere in this industry." Jasmine let her hands shake slightly. Not hard to fake, since adrenaline was already flooding her system. "You're threatening me again." "I'm presenting options," Hutchinson said. "Sign the papers, take the money, move on with your life. Or don't, and watch everything you've worked for disappear." She thought about Sarah Vance's instructions, about Hayes' strategy, about Alicia dying for a mission, and Jasmine needing to finish this one. "If I sign, you guarantee no criminal charges? No retaliation? No contacting future employers?" "Everything's in the agreement," Castellano said. "You walk away clean with $300,000, and we never speak of this again." Jasmine picked up the pen with shaking hands. "I want it in writing that the fabricated performance reviews get removed from my file." "They're not fabricated," Webb said automatically. "Then I want copies of all documentation with original signatures and dates. For my records." Castellano and Webb exchanged glances. Morrison's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Respect, maybe. Recognition that Jasmine wasn't as defeated as she appeared. "We'll provide copies," Castellano said, "after you sign." Jasmine took a breath, made it shaky and uncertain, and signed the first page. Then the second. Then kept signing through all 37 pages while her hand trembled and her jaw stayed clenched. Made it look like defeat instead of strategy. Made it look like she was giving up instead of setting up the final phase. When she finished, Hutchinson actually smiled. "Smart choice, Cooper. See, you're more intelligent than you appeared Friday night." The racial undertone was subtle, but there. Jasmine bit back the response she wanted to give, and instead said quietly, "When do I receive payment?" "Wire transfer within 72 hours, Webb said, "and you're officially terminated as of now. Security will escort you out. You have 15 minutes to clear your desk." Anderson stepped forward. Jasmine stood on shaking legs that were only partly performance. She'd just signed away her right to speak publicly about assault, about workplace harassment, about everything Hutchinson had done. Except Sarah Vance was right. The NDA couldn't enforce silence about federal crimes. And in 4 days, when Terminal 9 happened, all these signatures became worthless. Anderson escorted her back to the elevator without speaking. When the doors closed, he finally broke silence. "You made the right call. Hutchinson destroys people who fight him. At least this way, you survive." Jasmine looked at him. "How many people have you watched him destroy?" Anderson's jaw tightened. Enough to know survival matters more than pride. The elevator opened on the 3rd floor. The open office had gone quiet again, everyone watching as Jasmine walked to her desk, accompanied by security. She packed her personal items into a cardboard box someone had thoughtfully provided. Coffee mug from her mother. Photo of Alicia in her army uniform. Notepad with lists that didn't matter anymore. David Park stood near the copy machine, his face pale. He mouthed something. Looked like, "I'm sorry." Jasmine gave him the smallest nod. Not forgiveness, not judgment. Just acknowledgement that they'd both done what they needed to survive. Anderson escorted her to the parking garage, watched her load the box into her car. "For what it's worth," he said quietly, "I didn't like what happened Friday. But this company pays my salary, and I've got responsibilities." "Everyone's got responsibilities," Jasmine said. "Question is what you're willing to do to meet them." She drove away, checking her mirrors. The sedan followed for 3 blocks, then peeled off. Mission accomplished from their perspective. Threat neutralized. Problem solved. Jasmine made it 2 miles before her secure phone rang. Morrison. "Tell me you didn't actually sign that NDA." "I signed exactly what Sarah Vance told me to sign. It's void the moment federal arrests happen." "Chen, we just watched you sign away legal protections in a coerced settlement. If something goes wrong at Terminal 9, if Hutchinson walks somehow, you've got no recourse. Nothing's going wrong. 4 days and we get everyone." 4 days is a long time. A lot can happen. Morrison paused. "Hayes contacted me this morning. She's moving up the timeline." Jasmine's hands tightened on the wheel. "Moving it up? How?" "The Eastern buyers are getting nervous. They want to inspect the shipment before purchase. Hayes convinced them to come to Charleston 3 days early. Terminal 9 happens tomorrow night instead of Friday." "Tomorrow? That's not enough time to—" "It's happening whether we're ready or not. The buyers fly in tonight. Shipment arrives tomorrow at 2100 hours. We move then, or we lose everything." Jasmine pulled into a gas station parking lot, hands shaking for real now. "I need more time. I need to coordinate with Hayes, understand the security setup, know where federal teams will be positioned." "Hayes will brief you at 1300 hours. Location to follow. And Chen?" Morrison's voice softened. "If this feels wrong, if any part of this operation feels compromised, you extract immediately. That's not a suggestion." The call ended. Jasmine sat in her car watching Charleston traffic flow past and feeling like she was being pulled in directions she couldn't control. Hayes manipulating timelines. Hutchinson thinking he'd won. Eastern buyers arriving early. Everything accelerating toward a confrontation that was supposed to happen in 4 days, but now happened in 24 hours. Her personal phone buzzed. Text from unknown number. A photo. She opened it and felt her stomach drop. The photo showed her apartment building. Showed her car parked outside. Showed someone had been watching her this morning before she even left for the settlement meeting. The caption read, "You signed the papers. Good. Now disappear. Leave Charleston tonight or the next accident won't miss." Jasmine deleted the photo, but her hands were shaking too hard to control. This wasn't surveillance anymore. This was direct threat. Hutchinson's people telling her that settlement or not, they wanted her gone. She called Sarah Vance.
"They're threatening me, telling me to leave Charleston or face consequences."
Perfect. That's exactly the panic response we wanted. Hutchinson's scared enough to make sloppy threats instead of calculated moves. Vance paused. "Where are you right now?"
"Gas station on Morrison Avenue."
"Stay there. My mother's sending the team to bring you to the briefing location. Don't go back to your apartment. Don't go anywhere alone. From this point forward, you're under protection protocols."
"I don't need protection. I need to understand what's happening tomorrow night."
"You'll understand everything at 1300 hours. Until then, trust the team that's kept you alive for 8 months.
A black SUV pulled into the gas station before Jasmine could respond. Tinted windows. Government plates. 2 people in front seats wearing tactical gear that screamed federal operations. The passenger window rolled down. A woman in her 40s, with sharp eyes and a scar across her left cheek, leaned out. "Lieutenant Commander Williams? I'm Agent Torres, Colonel Hayes' primary security team. We're here to escort you to the briefing." Jasmine hesitated. Everything about this felt like operational control slipping away. Like being a chess piece moved by invisible hands, instead of an operator running her own mission. But Alicia had trusted her chain of command, even when orders didn't make sense, had followed protocols even when they felt wrong, because military operations required trust in leadership. "Give me 5 minutes," Jasmine said. "I need to make a call." She dialed her mother without thinking, needed to hear a voice that wasn't connected to federal operations or covert missions or weapons trafficking. Her mother answered on the second ring. "Jasmine, baby, what's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. I just needed to hear your voice." "You only call me in the middle of the day when something's wrong. Talk to me." Jasmine closed her eyes, felt tears threatening for the first time since Friday's slap. "I miss Alicia, Mama. I miss her so much, and I'm trying to make her death mean something. But everything's moving so fast, and I don't know if I'm doing the right thing anymore." Silence on the line. Then her mother's voice, soft and fierce. "Baby girl, listen to me. Alicia died doing what she believed in. She died serving something bigger than herself. You're doing the same thing. I don't know what mission you're on, don't need to know. But I know my daughters. You're both cut from the same cloth. You finish what you start." "What if finishing it costs too much?" "Then you decide what you're willing to pay. But don't you dare dishonor your sister's sacrifice by giving up because things got hard." Her mother's voice cracked slightly. "I lost one daughter to weapons traffickers. I'm not losing another to doubt." Jasmine wiped her eyes. "I love you, Mama." "I love you too, baby. Now go do whatever you need to do, and come home when it's done." She ended the call and walked to the black SUV. Agent Torres opened the back door. The interior was standard federal transport. Reinforced panels, communication equipment, enough firepower hidden in compartments to fight a small war. "Where are we going?"
Jasmine asked as they pulled into traffic. Safe house north of the city. Colonel Hayes is waiting. The drive took 40 minutes through Charleston suburbs, into rural areas where houses spread farther apart and trees blocked sightlines from the road. The safe house was a nondescript ranch-style building that looked like any other retiree's property. Nothing about it screamed federal operations, until they pulled around back and Jasmine saw the satellite dishes, reinforced doors, and security cameras covering every approach. Colonel Patricia Hayes stood on the back porch, looking exactly like her voice suggested. Mid-60s, silver hair pulled back military tight, eyes that had seen too much but stayed sharp. She wore civilian clothes but carried herself with authority that came from decades of command. Lieutenant Commander Williams, thank you for trusting the process. Jasmine climbed out of the SUV. Trust implies choice. I was told to come here or face consequences. Hayes almost smiled. Fair point. Come inside. We have 23 hours before Terminal 9 and a lot to cover. The safe house interior was pure Federal Operations Center. Computer screens showing surveillance feeds, maps of Charleston Harbor covering one entire wall, photos of Hutchinson, Webb, Anderson, and 24 other people connected by red string showing network relationships. But what made Jasmine stop cold was the photo section labeled Casualties. Faces of people killed by weapons this network had trafficked, hundreds of them. And in the center, larger than the others, was Alicia. Your sister, Hayes said quietly. Private First Class Alicia Williams, 23 years old. Killed by an IED built with weapons that came through Hutchinson's Manila route. One of 6,847 confirmed deaths we've traced to this network over 15 years. Jasmine couldn't breathe. Seeing Alicia's face on that wall, surrounded by thousands of other victims, made everything suddenly, devastatingly real. I've been hunting the people responsible for 8 years, Hayes continued, since my son David was killed by weapons from this same network. He was a Marine, 25 years old, ambushed in Afghanistan by insurgents carrying RPGs that Hutchinson's people sold them. I watched him buried at Arlington, and I made a promise that I'd dismantle every piece of the infrastructure that killed him. So you recruited me because my sister died the same way. I recruited you because you're an exceptional operator with personal motivation that can't be bought or faked. Because you'd stay deep cover through anything to get justice. And because you remind me of my son. Same determination, same willingness to sacrifice everything for the mission. Hayes pulled out a tablet, brought up security footage. This is Terminal 9 tomorrow night. The shipment arrives at 2100 hours. Hutchinson and his people will be there personally because the Eastern buyers insist on inspecting merchandise before purchase. FBI and naval intelligence teams will be positioned here, here, and here. She indicated positions on the map. When Hutchinson takes possession of the weapons, we move. Simultaneous arrests of 63 co-conspirators across 5 countries happens within the same 30-minute window. What's my role? You'll be on site as observer and backup. If something goes wrong, if Hutchinson suspects federal presence, you're positioned to provide intelligence and extraction support. I thought I was supposed to be neutralized. Hutchinson thinks I signed the settlement and disappeared. Hayes smiled, and it was predatory. Hutchinson thinks a lot of things that aren't true. Tomorrow night, he's going to learn exactly how wrong he was. Agent Torres appeared in the doorway. Colonel, we've got a problem. David Park just called our emergency line. He says Hutchinson's people are asking him questions about Jasmine's background, digging into things that could expose her real identity. Hayes's expression hardened. Bring him in. If he's compromised, we need to know before tomorrow night. 30 minutes later, David Park sat across from Jasmine in the safe house, looking terrified and exhausted. They know something's wrong. I don't know what tipped them off, but Hutchinson's got investigators running deep background on you. They found discrepancies in your employment history, references that don't check out completely, timeline gaps they can't explain. Jasmine's pulse kicked up. What did you tell them? Nothing. I said I barely knew you, just worked in the same building. But they're not believing me. They think I helped you somehow. Think maybe I was feeding you information. David's hands shook. They offered me $50,000 to tell them everything I know. And when I said I didn't know anything, they threatened my mother's hospice care. Said insurance complications could happen easily. We can protect your mother, Hayes said. Federal witness protection protocols. She's dying. She's got maybe 6 weeks left. I'm not moving her away from family and friends to spend her last days in some safe house. David looked at Jasmine. I need to know what's really happening, who you really are, because I'm betting everything that you're worth protecting, and I need to know I'm making the right choice. Jasmine glanced at Hayes, who gave a subtle nod. I'm Lieutenant Commander Jasmine Williams, United States Navy SEALs. I've been undercover at Titan Maritime for 8 months, investigating weapons trafficking. Hutchinson's network has killed thousands of people, including my sister. Tomorrow night, we're taking down the entire operation. David sat back, processing. Navy SEAL. That explains why you never seemed scared of Hutchinson. Why you negotiated when you should have been terrified. He laughed, hollow and stressed. And I offered you career advice. Jesus. You helped me more than you know. The information you provided about shipping weight discrepancies gave us evidence we needed. So what happens to me? Hutchinson's people are watching my apartment, following me to work, calling my phone at all hours asking questions. I can't keep lying when I don't even know what the truth is supposed to be. Hayes leaned forward. You have 2 options, Mr. Park. Option 1. We place you in protective custody until after tomorrow night's operation. You're safe, but your mother doesn't see you for potentially several days. Option 2. You wear a wire, go back to Hutchinson's people, and tell them you've decided to cooperate. Feed them information we provide that makes them confident enough to proceed with Terminal 9. You want me to be bait. I want you to be an asset. There's a difference. David looked at Jasmine. What would you do? She thought about Alicia, about choices between safety and mission, about her mother's words about finishing what you start. I've asked what happens to my mother if I get killed wearing that wire. Federal government covers all remaining hospice care, pays off your student loans, and provides a death benefit that ensures she's comfortable for however long she has left, Hayes said without hesitation. We take care of our people, Mr. Park, even the ones who weren't supposed to be part of this. And if I say no, then we protect you and your mother as best we can, but Hutchinson's people will keep circling until they find something they can use against you. David closed his eyes, took a shaky breath, and Jasmine saw the exact moment he decided. Saw duty override fear, the same way she'd seen it happen in combat zones when civilians chose to help American forces despite knowing the risks. Give me the wire, David said. Tell me what to say. Hayes's tech specialist fitted David with recording equipment that looked nothing like what Jasmine expected. No obvious wires, no bulky transmitters. Just a button on his shirt that contained a micro camera and a phone case that transmitted audio through encrypted cellular networks. If they search you, they'll find it, the tech said. But most people don't think to check shirt buttons. They pat down pockets, check phones, miss the obvious. David's hands shook as he buttoned his shirt. What do I say when they ask about Maya? About Jasmine? About whatever her real name is? You tell them the truth, Hayes said. That you barely knew her. That she seemed normal until Friday night. That you were just as surprised as everyone else when she signed the settlement and disappeared. They're not going to believe that. They don't need to believe it completely. They just need to believe it enough to stay confident about tomorrow night. Hayes pulled up a photo on her tablet. This is Viktor Kozlov, one of the Eastern buyers arriving tonight.
Former Russian military. Current arms dealer operating out of Prague. He's paranoid, suspicious, and will walk away from deals if anything feels wrong. Your job is to make everything feel right. Jasmine watched David process this. Watched fear and determination war across his face. She'd seen the same expression on local translators in Afghanistan, on informants in Iraq, on people who weren't trained for danger but stepped into it anyway because the alternative was worse. "What happens if I mess up?" David asked quietly. "If I say the wrong thing and Kozlov walks?" "Then 63 traffickers stay free and this network keeps operating," Hayes said. "But that's not going to happen, because you're smarter than you think and more capable than Hutchinson gives you credit for." David looked at Jasmine. "You trust her? Trust this whole operation?" Jasmine thought about the photo wall of casualties, about Alicia's face among thousands of others, about her mother's voice saying, "Finish what you start." "I trust that tomorrow night changes everything, one way or another." Hayes's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and her expression hardened. "Hutchinson's investigator just called David's cell. He wants to meet in 30 minutes at a coffee shop downtown. You need to go, now." David stood on shaking legs. 30 minutes, Jesus. "You've got this," Jasmine said, and meant it. "Just remember, you're a warehouse supervisor who's scared of losing his job. You're not a federal asset. You're not brave. You're just trying to survive." "I am trying to survive." "Then you won't have to act." Agent Torres drove David downtown, while Hayes pulled Jasmine into the operations center. Multiple screens showed surveillance feeds from cameras positioned around the coffee shop where David would meet Hutchinson's investigator. "We'll monitor everything," Hayes said. "If David's in danger, we extract immediately." "And blow the whole operation." "Better than losing a civilian." Hayes turned to face Jasmine directly. "I know what you're thinking, that we're using David the same way we used you, moving pieces around without full consent or understanding. And you're right, that's exactly what we're doing, because this is war, and war requires sacrifice. David's not a soldier. Neither were most of the 6,000 people on that wall. They were teachers and engineers and kids who wanted to make the world better. They died anyway, because men like Hutchinson value profit over human life." Hayes's voice went cold. "I will sacrifice David Park if it means stopping this network. I will sacrifice you if necessary. I will sacrifice myself. That's what command means." Jasmine felt anger flash hot in her chest. "Alicia didn't die so you could justify using people as expendable assets. Your sister died because someone like me wasn't willing to make hard choices 8 years ago, when this network was smaller and stoppable." Hayes stepped closer. "I failed my son. I failed your sister. I'm not failing the next 6,000 people these weapons would kill. So yes, I'm using David. I used you. I'll use whoever I need to finish this." The screen showed David entering the coffee shop. He ordered something at the counter, hands visibly shaking, then sat at a table near the window. 2 minutes later, a man in his 40s joined him. Expensive suit, military bearing, eyes that scanned the room with professional paranoia. "That's Richard Morrison," Hayes said, "head of corporate security for Titan Maritime. Former Army intelligence, dishonorable discharge for conduct unbecoming. Currently earning 3 times his military salary by protecting Hutchinson's criminal enterprise." The audio came through clear, despite ambient coffee shop noise. Morrison's voice carried authority and threat in equal measure. "Mr. Park, thank you for agreeing to meet. I know this has been a stressful time." "I just want this to be over," David said, and Jasmine heard real exhaustion in his voice. "I want to do my job without being followed or questioned or threatened." "Then help us understand Maya Cooper, or whatever her real name is." "I don't know what you mean. Her name is Maya Cooper. She worked in logistics coordination."
We ran deep background, Morrison said. Her employment references check out on surface level, but crack under detailed investigation. The company she claimed to work for in Singapore existed, but has no record of employing anyone named Maya Cooper. Her college transcripts show a degree, but the registrar's office takes 48 hours longer than normal to verify. Everything about her screams constructed identity. David's breathing quickened, visible on the video feed. I don't know anything about that. She seemed normal to me. Normal people don't negotiate settlement offers up from $300,000 to $500,000. Normal people don't quote company policy verbatim. Normal people don't stay calm after being struck in the face. Morrison leaned forward. You worked near her for 8 months. You telling me you never noticed anything unusual? She was quiet, kept to herself, did her job. And Friday night when Hutchinson disciplined her, you were there. You saw what happened. I saw him hit her, yeah. Everybody saw it. What did you think when you saw it? David hesitated, and Jasmine's hands clenched, watching him struggle for the right answer. I thought it was wrong. Thought he shouldn't have done it. But you didn't intervene. Would you have? Against the VP of operations? I've got student loans and a mother in hospice. I can't afford to lose my job over someone else's confrontation. Morrison studied him for a long moment. Your mother. How is she? Dying. Cancer. 6 weeks if we're lucky. Must be expensive. Hospice care, medications, end-of-life arrangements. It's manageable. Is it? Because our records show you're behind on payments. 3 months overdue on your mother's care facility. David's face went pale. How do you know that? I know everything about you, Mr. Park. I know you applied for personal loans from 4 different banks and got rejected. I know you sold your car last month to cover costs. I know you're drowning in debt while watching your mother die. Morrison's voice softened dangerously. I can make that go away. All of it. Medical debt cleared. Hospice payments current. Enough money left over to bury her properly when the time comes. In exchange for what? Truth. About Maya Cooper. About what she was really doing at Titan Maritime. About who she was working for. Jasmine watched David's face crumple slightly. Watched him realize that Morrison was offering him exactly what he needed most in the world. Financial security. Peace of mind. The ability to let his mother die with dignity. I don't know who she worked for, David said quietly. I swear I don't. But you suspect something. You must have suspected something was wrong about her. Hayes's hand moved toward the extraction signal. Jasmine grabbed her wrist. Wait, let him handle this. He's braking. He's processing. There's a difference. On screen, David took a shaky breath. Maybe she seemed too calm sometimes, too controlled, like she was always thinking 3 steps ahead. But that could just be personality. Some people are like that. Did she ever ask you questions about shipments? About routes or schedules or cargo manifests? She asked about the Manila route once, about weight discrepancies. But that was her job, checking manifests for errors. Morrison pulled out his phone, showed David something. Do you recognize this woman? The camera angle didn't show what Morrison was displaying, but David's sharp intake of breath said everything. That's Maya, but different. Military uniform. Medals. Jasmine's blood went cold. Morrison had found her actual military photo somehow, had connected Maya Cooper to Lieutenant Commander Jasmine Williams. Her real name is Jasmine Williams, Morrison said. Navy SEAL, combat veteran, currently assigned to Naval Intelligence, investigating weapons trafficking. She's been undercover at Titan Maritime for 8 months, building a federal case against us. The word us landed heavy. Morrison had just admitted complicity in his own investigation. David stared at the phone. Navy SEAL? Jesus. She's military? Was military. She signed an NDA yesterday, took $300,000, and disappeared.
Which means her operation is over. Her mission failed, and she's no longer a threat. Morrison pocketed his phone.
But we need to be certain she didn't compromise any upcoming shipments, didn't plant surveillance equipment, didn't recruit assets inside the company. Assets like me. Assets like you. I'm not an asset. I'm a warehouse supervisor, trying to keep my job and take care of my mother. Morrison leaned back. Then prove it. Tell me everything Maya Cooper ever said to you.
Every question she asked. Every conversation you remember. Help us verify she's really gone, and you get $50,000 cash, plus all medical debt cleared.
David's hands shook harder. Jasmine watched him struggle, watched him war with himself about whether to take Morrison's offer or stick to the script Hayes had given him. She asked about shipping routes, David said finally. About Manila specifically. About why certain containers showed weight discrepancies.
I told her it was probably clerical errors, that manifests get updated in transit sometimes. She seemed satisfied with that answer.
What else? She asked about employee turnover, about people who'd been fired or quit suddenly. I told her Titan Maritime has high turnover, like most logistics companies. She didn't push it. Did she ever access files she wasn't authorized to see? Not that I know about. She worked in her cubicle, processed manifests, went home. Pretty boring routine.
Morrison watched him carefully.
You're lying about something. I can see it. What are you hiding? David's breathing quickened. Jasmine could see panic setting in, could see him about to crack. Tell him, Hayes said into the comms that David couldn't hear. Tell him what we discussed. But David couldn't hear the instruction. He was on his own, making decisions in real time, while Morrison pressed harder.
I'm hiding that I feel like garbage about this whole thing, David said, voice cracking.
I'm hiding that I watched Hutchinson hit a woman and did nothing because I was scared. I'm hiding that I'm sitting here cooperating with you because I need money to watch my mother die in peace. That's what I'm hiding. My own cowardice. The confession hung in the air. Morrison's expression shifted slightly, something almost like respect flickering across his face. Cowardice is human, Morrison said.
Self-preservation is smart. You did the right thing staying quiet Friday night.
You're doing the right thing now. He pulled out an envelope, slid it across the table. $5,000 cash, advance payment. When you verify that Maya Cooper hasn't contacted you since signing the NDA, when you confirm she's really gone, you get the remaining $45,000 and debt clearance. David took the envelope with shaking hands.
What if she does contact me?
Then you call me immediately, and your payment doubles. We need to know if she's still operating, if she's building a case through other channels. Morrison stood. Go see your mother, Mr. Park. Spend time with her while you can. And remember that Titan Maritime takes care of people who are loyal. The meeting ended. David left the coffee shop, walking like every step hurt.
Morrison sat for another 3 minutes, made 2 phone calls that audio surveillance caught clearly.
The warehouse supervisor is clean, scared, broke, and desperate. He won't be a problem. The second call was shorter. No indication Williams is still operating. The settlement worked. She's neutralized. Hayes smiled coldly. Perfect. Morrison just confirmed to Hutchinson that the threat is contained. They'll proceed with Terminal 9 exactly as planned.
Jasmine watched David get into Agent Torres's vehicle, watched him collapse in the back seat, looking like he'd aged 10 years in 30 minutes. When David returned to the safe house, Jasmine met him at the door. He handed her the envelope without speaking. You did good, she said. I took their money. I lied to a criminal investigator who's probably going to prison after tomorrow, and I took his bribe money. You sold a performance that keeps this operation alive. That money came from Hutchinson's criminal enterprise. Consider it restitution.
David looked at her with exhausted eyes. Are you really a Navy SEAL? Yes. Did my information actually help your investigation? Or did I just give you useless data about shipping routes? Your information about weight discrepancies gave us probable cause to expand surveillance. You helped more than you know. Will I have to testify? In court, I mean, when this goes to trial? Hayes appeared in the doorway. Probably, but we'll protect you through the process. Witness protection if necessary, though most likely you'll just need security during trial proceedings. My mother won't live long enough to see any trial. She'll die not knowing what I did here. She'll die thinking her son is just a warehouse supervisor barely making ends meet. She'll die knowing her son took care of her, Jasmine said quietly. That's what matters. David nodded slowly, then looked at Hayes. Morrison showed me Jasmine's military photo. How did he get access to that? I thought Navy records were classified. Hayes's expression darkened. They are, which means the mole in counterterrorism is feeding Hutchinson more than just operational intelligence. He's providing personnel files, classified service records, maybe even current mission parameters. Do you know who the mole is? Former Deputy Director Marcus Chen. He's been under surveillance for 6 weeks, but we haven't arrested him yet because we need him to feel secure enough to keep operating. Tomorrow night, when arrests happen, he goes down simultaneously. Jasmine's secure phone buzzed. Captain Morrison. Eastern buyers landed early. They're at a hotel downtown demanding immediate inspection of merchandise. Hutchinson's panicking because the shipment isn't supposed to arrive until 2100 hours. She showed the message to Hayes, who cursed quietly. How early? Jasmine typed back, How early did they land? 3 hours ago. They're threatening to walk if they can't see product by 1800 hours. Hayes checked her watch. 1500 hours. 3 hours to produce weapons that wouldn't arrive for 6 more hours. Hutchinson's going to have to stall them or move the shipment earlier, Hayes said. Either way, it changes our operational timeline. Her phone rang. She answered, listened for 30 seconds, and her face went carefully blank. Understood. Keep me updated. She ended the call and looked at Jasmine. The shipment is being moved up. Hutchinson contacted the cargo vessel and paid triple fees for emergency early arrival. The weapons will be at Terminal 9 by 1700 hours instead of 2100. That's 2 hours from now. Which means federal teams need to reposition immediately. Which means we move the entire operation forward by 4 hours. Which means everything we planned goes out the window, and we improvise. Jasmine felt her pulse spike. I need to be on site. Negative. You're still officially neutralized by the NDA. If Hutchinson sees you anywhere near Terminal 9, he'll abort. Then I go in disguised. Different hair, different clothes, face partially obscured. Just enough to blend in as dock worker or security. Hayes considered this for 3 seconds. Agent Torres will handle disguise. You're on site as backup observer only. If shooting starts, you extract. If arrests go clean, you stay invisible. And if something goes wrong, then you do what SEALs do. Improvise, adapt, and overcome. The next 90 minutes were chaos. Federal teams repositioning around Terminal 9. Local police being briefed on potential armed confrontation. FBI hostage rescue standing by in case buyers took hostages. Naval intelligence coordinating with international agencies for simultaneous arrests in 4 other countries. Agent Torres transformed Jasmine's appearance with professional efficiency. Short brown wig, colored contacts, changing her eyes from dark brown to hazel. Facial prosthetics that altered her cheekbone structure just enough to break facial recognition software. Heavy dock worker coveralls that hid her build and concealed body armor. You look nothing like yourself, Torres said. Even people who know you wouldn't recognize you at casual glance. Jasmine studied her reflection. Torres was right. The woman in the mirror looked like a different person entirely. Hayes appeared with tactical gear. Comms unit, sidearm, body armor. You're positioned on the perimeter in case Hutchinson's people try to run. If they scatter, you call positions but do not engage unless absolutely necessary. Understood. And Chen? Hayes's expression softened microscopically. Your sister would be proud. What you've done here, the patience you've shown, the hits you've taken, that's real courage. Jasmine felt her throat tighten. I just want justice. You're about to get it. They drove to Terminal 9 in 3 separate vehicles, standard federal convoy protocol. The terminal looked like any other Charleston port facility. Stacked containers creating steel canyons, cranes looming overhead, the smell of diesel and saltwater mixing in humid air. Jasmine took position behind a container stack with clear sightlines to the main dock, where the cargo vessel was already pulling in 3 hours early. Her earpiece crackled with Federal Team communications. Alpha Team in position. Bravo Team set. Charlie Team standing by. All units hold until we have visual confirmation of weapons transfer. Jasmine watched through tactical binoculars as a black Mercedes pulled up to the dock. Hutchinson emerged, followed by Webb and Anderson. Then 3 men she didn't recognize. Eastern Europeans based on their bearing and clothing. One of them had to be Viktor Kozlov. Her earpiece crackled. Hayes's voice. We've got positive ID on all 3 buyers, Kozlov, Dmitry Volkov, and Alexei Petrov. Combined, they're responsible for weapons deals worth $400 million over the last 6 years. The cargo vessel docked. Crew members secured lines and opened the cargo hold. A crane lifted a container, moved it to the dock with mechanical precision. Hutchinson approached the container with a keypad, entered a code. The doors opened. Inside were wooden crates, military stenciling, Cyrillic characters. Exactly what Jasmine had seen in intelligence briefings for 8 months. Kozlov approached, inspected a crate, pulled out a pry bar and cracked it open. Through her binoculars, Jasmine saw what was inside. RPGs. At least a dozen of them. Russian military hardware worth enough money to fund terrorist operations for months. We have positive visual on illegal weapons, Hayes said over comms. All teams prepare to move on my signal. But before Hayes could give the order, Morrison appeared from behind a different container stack. Not Richard Morrison from Corporate Security. Captain Rebecca Morrison from Naval Intelligence. And she was pointing her weapon directly at Hutchinson. Federal agents! Nobody move! Everything exploded into motion simultaneously. Kozlov pulled a weapon. Anderson returned fire. Webb ran toward the Mercedes. FBI teams poured from concealment points, shouting commands that nobody was following. Jasmine broke from her position without thinking, muscle memory from 3 combat tours taking over. She saw Morrison pinned down behind inadequate cover, saw Kozlov advancing with professional precision, saw everything about to go catastrophically wrong. She dropped Kozlov with 2 shots center mass before he could fire on Morrison. Dropped Volkov 3 seconds later when he tried to flank federal positions. Petrov threw down his weapon and raised hands, smart enough to recognize when a fight was lost. Anderson kept firing until FBI hostage rescue put him down with non-lethal rounds. Webb made it to the Mercedes, but Agent Torres blocked his escape route with her vehicle. Hutchinson stood frozen in the middle of the dock, hands raised, face gone white with shock and terror. Morrison approached him with weapon trained. Bradford Hutchinson, you're under arrest for weapons trafficking, conspiracy to provide material support to terrorist organizations, and about 40 other charges that are going to put you in federal prison for the rest of your life. She cuffed him personally, and Jasmine saw something fierce and satisfied in Morrison's expression. The entire confrontation lasted 90 seconds. When it ended, 3 buyers were in custody. Anderson was unconscious, Webb was surrounded, and Hutchinson was finally, completely,
utterly defeated. Hayes's voice came through the earpiece. All teams report status. One by one, teams called in successful arrests. Charleston secure. Prague target in custody. Moscow arrests confirmed. London operation successful. Hong Kong team reporting suspects detained. 63 arrests across 5 countries within the same 2-hour window. The network was done. Jasmine walked toward Morrison, pulling off her wig and contacts as she moved. Morrison saw her coming and actually smiled. "Lieutenant Commander Williams, you just saved my life." "You would have handled it." "Maybe, but I'm glad I didn't have to find out." Morrison looked at Hutchinson, still stunned and handcuffed. "Want to be the one to tell him who you really are?" Jasmine walked over to where federal agents held Hutchinson. She stood close enough that he had to look at her. "You," he said, recognition finally cutting through shock. "Cooper, the NDA. You signed Lieutenant Commander Jasmine Williams, United States Navy SEALs. That NDA doesn't cover federal crimes, Mr. Hutchinson. Turns out, slapping a federal officer during an active investigation was the stupidest decision you've ever made. And you've made a lot of stupid decisions." She walked away while he was still processing. Walked past containers full of weapons that would never reach terrorists. Walked past federal agents reading rights to criminals who'd killed thousands. Walked toward Hayes, who stood near the command vehicle, watching the operation conclude with the satisfaction of someone who'd spent 8 years planning this exact moment. "It's done," Hayes said. "It's done," Jasmine agreed. And somewhere, she imagined Alicia smiling. The media descended on Charleston like locusts within hours. 23 news vans parked outside the federal courthouse by morning. Jasmine watched them from the safe house, while Hayes coordinated with federal prosecutors about testimony schedules and witness protection protocols. "You'll need to testify," Hayes said. "About the undercover operation, about Hutchinson's assault, about everything you documented over 8 months." "When?" "Preliminary hearing is in 72 hours. Hutchinson's lawyers are already filing motions to suppress evidence, claiming illegal surveillance and entrapment. We need your testimony to establish that everything was lawful and justified." Jasmine's phone rang. Her mother. "Baby girl, I'm watching the news. They're saying you're some kind of hero who took down weapons traffickers. Tell me that's true." "It's true, Mama." "And you let that man slap you as part of the operation, knowing you could have stopped him?" "I needed documentation. Needed him to expose himself." Her mother was quiet for a long moment. "Your sister would have done the same thing. She always said sometimes you take hits so you can land the knockout punch later." Jasmine felt tears threaten. "I miss her, Mama, every single day." "I know, baby, but she's proud." Wherever she is, Alicia's looking down saying, "That's my big sister. That's my Jazz. Finishing what needs finishing." They talked for another 10 minutes about logistics, about when Jasmine could come home, about family dinner when this was over. When the call ended, Jasmine felt simultaneously lighter and heavier. Mission accomplished, but grief never really went away. Hayes appeared in the doorway. "David Park wants to see you. His mother passed away last night." Peacefully, in hospice, with him at her bedside. He used the money Morrison paid him to cover all her final expenses. Jasmine found David in the safe house kitchen, staring at coffee he wasn't drinking. His eyes were red but dry, face showing the exhaustion that comes after grief has burned through everything else. "I'm sorry about your mother," Jasmine said. "She died not knowing what I did. Died thinking I was just a warehouse supervisor barely making ends meet." David's voice was hollow. "I wanted to tell her. Wanted her to know I helped stop weapons traffickers. That I did something meaningful.
But Hayes said operational security required silence. You did do something meaningful. You kept this operation alive when it could have collapsed. You sold a performance that convinced Hutchinson he was safe. I took bribe money from criminals to buy morphine for my dying mother. That's not heroic. That's just sad. Jasmine sat across from him. You used resources from a criminal enterprise to provide comfort for someone you loved. That's not sad. That's practical. And when you testify at trial, when you tell your story, people will understand you did what you had to do. Will I have to testify? Probably. Hutchinson's lawyers will try to discredit the investigation. Your testimony establishes that I was gathering legitimate intelligence, that you weren't a planted federal asset, that everything I learned came from observing actual criminal activity. David finally looked at her. They're going to make me sound like a coward who cooperated with criminals for money. They're going to try. But the truth is, you cooperated with criminals to protect your mother, then cooperated with federal agents to stop weapons traffickers. That's not cowardice. That's complexity. Hayes entered the kitchen carrying her tablet. Marcus Chen just got arrested. FBI took him into custody 30 minutes ago at his home in Virginia. He's already trying to bargain information for reduced sentence. What kind of information? Jasmine asked. Names of other federal employees compromised by Hutchinson's network. Apparently, Chen wasn't the only mole. He claims there are 3 more in various agencies, all taking payments to provide operational intelligence. Jasmine felt something cold settle in her chest. How long has this been going on? At least 6 years, according to preliminary debriefing. Chen's been feeding Hutchinson advance warning about federal investigations since 2019. That's why previous operations against this network kept failing. They always knew law enforcement was coming. How many people died because of his betrayal? Hayes's expression went flat. We're still calculating. But conservatively, hundreds, maybe thousands if you count secondary casualties from weapons his intelligence helped traffic. David stood abruptly. I need air. This is too much. He left the kitchen. Jasmine watched him go, understanding that some truths were too heavy to process immediately. That learning the full scope of corruption and death connected to this network required time and distance. He'll be okay, Hayes said. Grief and revelation combined are overwhelming. But he's stronger than he thinks. Is anyone ever okay after learning they were adjacent to something this massive? Hayes looked at her with something almost like sympathy. You tell me, Lieutenant Commander. You spent 8 months embedded in that corruption. Are you okay? Jasmine thought about Alicia, about the 6,847 faces on Hayes's casualty wall, about Hutchinson's slap, and the manufactured performance of defeat. I will be. Eventually. The preliminary hearing happened on a Thursday morning in federal court. The building was old stone and glass, constructed in an era when government architecture meant something about permanence and justice. Jasmine wore her dress uniform, ribbons and medals visible, Navy Cross catching light from overhead fixtures. Hutchinson entered in prison orange, hands cuffed, face showing 3 days of growth and 0 sleep. His legal team surrounded him, 5 attorneys from a firm that specialized in defending wealthy criminals. Regina Castellano led them, expensive suit and calculated confidence intact despite the overwhelming evidence. Judge Patricia Morrison, no relation to Captain Morrison, but sharing an excellent judicial temperament, reviewed preliminary motions with practiced efficiency. Counselor Castellano, your motion argues that the federal investigation violated your client's Fourth Amendment rights through illegal surveillance. Explain. Castellano stood smoothly. Your Honor, Lieutenant Commander Williams embedded herself in Titan Maritime under false pretenses, accessing private company files, recording conversations without consent, and gathering intelligence without proper warrant procedures. Everything she collected is fruit of the poisonous tree and should be excluded. Federal Prosecutor David Park, different David Park, no relation to the warehouse supervisor, but sharing an excellent name, responded immediately. Your Honor, Lieutenant Commander Williams was conducting a lawful undercover operation authorized by Naval Intelligence with proper federal oversight. She observed criminal activity in plain view, documented it through legal means, and her recordings fall under one-party consent laws in South Carolina. Judge Morrison looked at Jasmine. Lieutenant Commander Williams, approach. Jasmine walked to the witness stand, was sworn in, sat with military posture that showed 13 years of service. Lieutenant Commander, explain the scope of your investigation. Your Honor, I was embedded at Titan Maritime for 8 months investigating weapons trafficking. I observed illegal activity, documented it, and reported to my chain of command. I accessed no files I wasn't authorized to access as an employee. I recorded no conversations without being present as a participant, which is legal under South Carolina law. Castellano stood. Your Honor, may I cross-examine? Proceed. Castellano approached with calculated aggression. Lieutenant Commander Williams, you've testified you accessed no unauthorized files. But didn't you examine shipping manifests above your security clearance? I examined manifests as part of my job responsibilities as logistics coordinator. Responsibilities that were fake. You weren't really a logistics coordinator. You were a federal agent pretending to be one. I was a federal officer working undercover, yes, but the job responsibilities were real. I processed actual manifests as part of my cover. And during this processing, you gathered intelligence about my client's business operations. I gathered evidence of criminal activity. There's a difference. Castellano's eyes narrowed. You also testified that my client assaulted you at a charity event. But isn't it true you provoked that confrontation deliberately? I corrected factual errors about shipping routes. If that's provocation, then accuracy is a crime. You questioned him publicly in front of investors. You challenged his credibility. You created a situation where he felt compelled to respond. He felt compelled to slap me across the face. That's assault, regardless of what preceded it. You're a trained Navy SEAL. You could have avoided that slap easily. Jasmine kept her voice level, despite anger building. I could have, but avoiding it would have revealed training I wasn't supposed to have. My mission required maintaining cover, which meant accepting assault I could have prevented. So you let him hit you to strengthen your case? I documented assault that would have happened to any employee who corrected him. The only difference is I had the training to absorb it without breaking cover. Castellano switched tactics. Let's discuss your sister, Private Alicia Williams. She died in Iraq from an IED. That must have created significant anger toward weapons traffickers. Jasmine's hands clenched. My sister's death motivated me to volunteer for this assignment, yes. Motivated you enough to fabricate evidence? To entrap my client in a crime he wouldn't otherwise commit? Your client trafficked weapons for 15 years. I didn't entrap him. I documented what he was already doing. But you wanted him convicted because of your sister. You had personal vendetta. I wanted justice. There's a difference. Judge Morrison interrupted. Counselor, unless you have evidence that Lieutenant Commander Williams fabricated documentation, move on. Castellano returned to her table. Your Honor, we maintain that this investigation was tainted by personal bias and procedural irregularities. We request all evidence gathered by Lieutenant Commander Williams be excluded. Denied, Judge Morrison said. The investigation was lawful, properly supervised, and documented. Your client was caught in possession of illegal weapons during an active trafficking operation. Motion to suppress is denied. Hutchinson's face went white. His attorneys huddled, whispering urgent consultations. Castellano stood again. Your Honor, in light of the ruling, my client wishes to discuss potential plea arrangements.
We can discuss that in chambers. This hearing is adjourned. 3 hours later, Hayes found Jasmine in the courthouse cafeteria. Hutchinson's trying to bargain. He wants to provide information about higher-level players in exchange for reduced sentence.
What kind of information? Names of buyers we haven't identified. Financial networks we haven't traced. Shipping routes we don't know about. Hayes sat down. Prosecutors are considering it because his information could lead to additional arrests. But it means he might get 20 years instead of life. Jasmine felt rage flash hot. 20 years for killing thousands of people? 20 years guaranteed versus life sentence that his lawyers might reduce on appeal.
Prosecutors think it's pragmatic. It's letting him buy his way out of full accountability. Welcome to the justice system. Sometimes pragmatism matters more than perfection. Jasmine's phone buzzed. Text from David Park. Hutchinson's people are offering me money again. $50,000 to refuse to testify. What do I do? She showed Hayes the message. They're intimidating witnesses. That's witness tampering. Forward that to federal prosecutors immediately. Jasmine typed back to David. Screenshot the offer, send it to prosecutors, and tell them you're refusing. This is evidence of additional crimes. David's response came fast. Will this ever end? Will I ever just get to be a normal warehouse supervisor again? Eventually, Jasmine typed. But normal doesn't exist after you've seen what we've seen. You just learn to carry it differently. The trial started 6 weeks later. Federal courtroom packed with media, victims' families, and enough security to stop a military assault. Jasmine sat in the front row, wearing civilian clothes, waiting to be called as a witness. The prosecution opened with video evidence. The charity gala footage, showing Hutchinson slapping Jasmine. The settlement meeting audio, where he threatened her. The Terminal 9 arrests captured on multiple cameras. 8 hours of documentation that built an undeniable narrative of guilt. Castellano fought every piece, objecting to admissibility, questioning chain of custody, arguing that context mattered more than images. Judge Morrison overruled most objections, but allowed some, giving defense enough rope to feel heard without letting them derail proceedings. On day 3, Jasmine testified. She walked through 8 months of undercover work, explaining how she documented shipping weight discrepancies, traced financial transfers, identified buyers in 4 countries. She spoke clinically, professionally, keeping emotion locked down because breaking in federal court wasn't an option. Then Castellano cross-examined. Lieutenant Commander Williams, you've testified at length about evidence gathering. Let's discuss motivation. Your sister died from an IED. Do you blame my client for her death? Your client's network trafficked weapons used to build that IED. So yes, I hold him partially responsible. Partially responsible, not fully? The people who built the bomb killed my sister. Your client enabled them by providing weapons. Both are guilty. But your sister's death colored your investigation, made you see guilt where there might be innocent explanations. Jasmine leaned forward. Counselor, I watched your client personally inspect crates of RPGs and assault rifles at Terminal 9. I watched him negotiate prices with known weapons dealers. I watched him slap me for questioning his shipping routes. There's no innocent explanation for any of that. You watched him defend himself against an insubordinate employee who was secretly gathering intelligence. I watched him commit multiple felonies while thinking he was untouchable. Castellano changed direction. Your handler, Colonel Hayes. She lost her son to weapons traffickers. Did that create bias in how she supervised your operation? Colonel Hayes supervised my operation professionally. Did she ever express desire for revenge against traffickers? She expressed desire for justice. There's a difference. A difference you're uniquely positioned to explain, given your own desire for revenge. I wanted justice for my sister,
and 6,000 other victims. If that's revenge, then revenge is morally correct. Judge Morrison gavelled. "Counselor, move on." The trial continued for 3 weeks. Testimony from David Park about Hutchinson's intimidation tactic. Testimony from federal agents about the international network. Testimony from forensic accountants tracing $400 million through offshore accounts. And testimony from families. Parents who'd lost children to terrorism funded by Hutchinson's weapons. Spouses who'd buried partners. Kids who'd grown up without parents. Each story adding weight to the evidence, humanizing the 6,847 number into individual tragedies. Jasmine watched Hutchinson through it all, watched his confidence erode as evidence mounted, watched him realize that money and lawyers couldn't save him from overwhelming proof of guilt. On the final day, Hayes testified. She walked through her 8-year investigation, explaining how she'd tracked this network across continents, how she'd positioned assets and gathered intelligence, how she'd recruited Jasmine specifically because her skill set and motivation made her perfect for this operation. "Colonel Hayes," the prosecutor asked, "did you know Private Alicia Williams?" Hayes paused, something flickering in her expression. "Yes. I met her 3 months before she died. She was consulting on a project my son was working on. Cross-service coordination between Army and Marines. Bright young soldier with a future in intelligence work if she wanted it." Jasmine's breath caught. Hayes had known Alicia personally, had never mentioned it in 8 months of operation. "When Private Williams died, did that influence your investigation into weapons trafficking networks?" "It intensified it. Losing my son made it personal. Meeting Private Williams before she died made it urgent. Every day these networks operated meant more people like my son and Alicia died. I couldn't let that continue." The prosecutor nodded. No further questions. Castellano declined cross-examination. Smart choice. Attacking a decorated colonel who'd lost her son wouldn't play well with the jury. Closing arguments happened on a Friday afternoon. The prosecutor summarized evidence methodically, building the case piece by piece. Castellano argued reasonable doubt, suggesting that Hutchinson was being scapegoated for a larger network's crimes, that he'd been conducting legitimate business that federal agents had mischaracterized. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. They returned with guilty verdicts on all 47 counts. Hutchinson collapsed in his chair. His attorneys immediately filed notice of appeal. Judge Morrison set sentencing for 4 weeks later. Jasmine walked out of the courthouse into Charleston evening air that tasted like salt water and vindication. Hayes waited on the steps. "You knew Alicia," Jasmine said. "I did. Smart kid. Reminded me of my son. They would have been friends if they'd lived." "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because if you'd known I had personal connection to your sister, you might have questioned my objectivity, might have doubted that I recruited you for your skills rather than for revenge." "Did you? Recruit me for skills rather than revenge?" Hayes met her eyes. "Both. I needed an exceptional operator with personal motivation. You were perfect. And I wanted Alicia's death to mean something beyond tragedy. Wanted it to be the catalyst that brought down the network that killed her. So this whole operation was about your son and my sister." This operation was about 6,847 people who died because men like Hutchinson value profit over human lives. Your sister and my son were 2 of them. But every single person on that casualty wall mattered equally. Jasmine felt something shift in her chest. Not anger. Understanding. Hayes had carried grief and purpose for 8 years, building toward this moment when justice finally balanced the scales. "What happens now?" Jasmine asked. "Now you decide what kind of operator you want to be. Naval intelligence wants you. My organization wants you. You could go back to regular SEAL operations, or you could retire and live a normal life.
Normal doesn't exist anymore.
No, Hayes agreed. It doesn't. But purpose does. Mission does. The work continues because networks like this always exist. Question is whether you want to keep fighting them. Jasmine thought about Alicia, about her sister's last words. "Love you, Jazz. Stay safe." About how Alicia had chosen service over safety and paid with her life.
I'll keep fighting, but on my terms, with full transparency about operations. No more being used as a chess piece without knowing the full board.
Hayes smiled. Fair terms. Welcome to the team, Lieutenant Commander. Sentencing day arrived with unprecedented media coverage. Victims' families filled the courtroom gallery. Federal prosecutors presented impact statements from 17 countries, showing how Hutchinson's weapons had enabled violence across continents. Judge Morrison listened to 4 hours of testimony before pronouncing sentence. Mr. Hutchinson, you have shown consistent disregard for human life in pursuit of profit. You enabled terrorism, armed criminals, and facilitated violence that killed thousands. You assaulted a federal officer. You intimidated witnesses. You obstructed justice at every opportunity. The court sentences you to life in federal prison without possibility of parole on all trafficking counts to run consecutively. Additional sentences on assault and obstruction charges will run concurrent. You will never be free again. Hutchinson was led away without speaking. His shoulders slumped, face showing the weight of understanding that the rest of his life would be spent in concrete cells and razor wire. Outside the courthouse, media surrounded Jasmine. Cameras, microphones, questions shouted from every direction. Lieutenant Commander Williams, how does it feel to get justice for your sister?
Do you think the sentence is appropriate?
What would you say to other families affected by weapons trafficking? Jasmine looked at the cameras, thought about what Alicia would want her to say.
My sister died serving her country. She believed in protecting people who couldn't protect themselves.
This investigation, this operation, this conviction, all of it honors her sacrifice by ensuring that the network responsible for her death can never harm anyone again. To families who've lost loved ones to violence enabled by weapons trafficking, I want you to know that your losses matter, that people are fighting to prevent future tragedies, and that justice, while it can't bring back those we've lost, can prevent others from suffering the same pain. She walked away from the cameras toward Hayes, who stood near a black SUV. Where to now? Hayes asked. Arlington National Cemetery. I need to tell my sister we finished what we started. The drive to Arlington took 6 hours. Jasmine spent most of it silent, watching Virginia countryside roll past, while processing 8 months of operation, 3 weeks of trial, and a lifetime of grief compressed into seeking justice for one person who represented thousands. Arlington spread across hillsides, white markers stretching toward horizons like silent witnesses to sacrifice. Jasmine found Alicia's grave among them, fresh flowers already placed by their mother earlier that week. She knelt in grass still damp from morning rain. Hey, little sister, it's done. Hutchinson's in prison for life. The network that killed you is dismantled. 63 arrests across 5 countries. Hundreds of millions in illegal weapons seized. It won't bring you back, but maybe it prevents someone else's sister from dying the way you did. The words felt inadequate. Everything felt inadequate compared to the magnitude of loss. But Jasmine kept talking because silence felt worse. I let him slap me, Alicia. Let that bastard hit me in front of 60 people because I needed documentation. I know you would have punched him. You always said I thought too much, planned too much. But the plan worked. Patience worked. Taking hits to land the knockout worked. She wiped tears that came despite years of training to control emotion. Mama says you're proud of me. I hope she's right. I hope wherever you are, you know I finished this mission for you. For all 6,847 people that network killed. And I'm going to keep fighting. Keep stopping people like Hutchinson. Because that's what you would have done if our positions were reversed. Hayes appeared beside her, stood silently for a long moment, then spoke quietly. My son's buried 2 sections over. I come here every month to tell him about operations we've completed, networks we've dismantled. He never answers, but I feel like he hears. Does it get easier? No, you just get stronger at carrying it. They stood together among thousands of graves, 2 women who'd lost family to violence and chosen to fight back by dismantling the systems that enabled it. 6 months later, Jasmine stood at Naval Intelligence Headquarters in Virginia, receiving a commendation for exceptional service. The ceremony was small, classified, attended only by people with clearance to know what she'd actually done. Captain Morrison pinned the medal to her uniform. Lieutenant Commander Williams, your service exemplifies the highest standards of naval intelligence. Your 8-month undercover operation resulted in the largest weapons trafficking bust in a decade. You have honored your sister's memory and saved countless lives. Jasmine accepted the medal, but the weight of it felt strange. Recognition for work that had cost her pieces of herself she'd never get back. After the ceremony, David Park approached her. He looked different, healthier, eyes showing sleep and purpose instead of exhaustion and grief. I got a new job, he said. Federal Witness Protection Specialist, helping people who testify against criminal enterprises rebuild their lives. Figured I understood the process better than most. That's good work, David. Important work. Your testimony at trial made me realize something. That taking hits, whether physical or psychological, creates the space to land bigger punches. You took a slap. I took bribe money. We both used what happened to us to stop something worse. How's your mother's memory? Honored. I started a foundation in her name, providing hospice care for families who can't afford it. Using my testimony payments and settlement money from Titan Maritime's bankruptcy proceedings. She died without knowing what I did, but her legacy helps other people die with dignity. Jasmine felt something warm settle in her chest. She'd be proud. So would your sister. They parted ways with understanding that some bonds formed through shared trauma and purpose couldn't be broken by distance or time. Hayes found Jasmine in the parking garage later. I've got a new assignment. Network operating out of Eastern Europe, similar structure to Hutchinson's operation. I need an operator who understands long-term infiltration and has personal investment in stopping weapons trafficking. How long? 12 to 18 months deep cover. Dangerous. Complicated. Exactly the kind of mission your sister would have volunteered for. Jasmine looked at her reflection in a car window. Saw a woman marked by service and loss. Strengthened by both. Still standing despite everything that had tried to break her. I'm in, but I want full transparency about operational parameters. No surprises about parallel missions or hidden objectives. Agreed. You've earned that trust. When do we start? 3 weeks. Gives you time to train, prepare, and say goodbye to family. Jasmine spent those 3 weeks in Charleston with her mother, repairing relationships strained by 8 months of limited contact and classified secrecy. They cooked together, talked about Alicia, processed grief that never really ended but evolved into something bearable. On her last night home, her mother gave her Alicia's dog tags. She would have wanted you to have these. Wanted you to carry a piece of her on whatever missions come next. Jasmine closed her fingers around metal that had touched her sister's skin, felt the weight of legacy and love combined. I'll bring them back, Mama, just like I came back this time. I know you will, baby girl. You're too stubborn to do anything else. They hugged for a long time, two women who'd survived losing someone they loved, by choosing to believe her death meant something. The plane to Eastern Europe left on a Tuesday morning. Jasmine sat in the window seat, watching America shrink beneath her, thinking about Hutchinson in his federal prison cell, about the 6,847 faces on Hayes's casualty wall, about justice that couldn't restore what was lost, but could prevent future losses. She thought about Alicia's last words. "Love you, Jazz. Stay safe." Jasmine touched the dog tags hanging beneath her shirt and made a silent promise to the sister she'd never stop missing. Stay safe wasn't possible in this work, but fight smart, fight hard, and finish the mission. That was possible. That was what SEALs did. What Alicia had done. What Jasmine would keep doing until weapons traffickers had nowhere left to hide. The plane climbed toward cruising altitude. Jasmine opened the mission briefing Hayes had provided and began studying the network she'd spend the next year dismantling. Because Bradford Hutchinson was one man, but systems that enabled violence were everywhere. And as long as those systems existed, operators like Jasmine Williams would keep infiltrating them, documenting them, and bringing them down one slap, one arrest, one life sentence at a time. Not for glory, not for recognition, but for sisters who died too young, for mothers who buried children, for the 6,847 faces and all the faces that could still be saved if people were willing to take the hits necessary to land the knockout punches. Jasmine had taken the slap, had let Hutchinson think he'd won, had signed the NDA knowing it was worthless, had played defeated while positioning every piece for the final move. And when the trap closed, when justice arrived with federal agents and life sentences, Hutchinson finally learned what thousands before him had learned too late. That underestimating a woman, especially a black woman, especially a Navy SEAL with personal motivation and professional skill, wasn't just a mistake. It was the last mistake powerful men made before they lost everything.